Okay, and welcome to the dumbest, shittiest, most pathetic, most fucked up COVID disease X riddled podcast that has ever existed since the dawn of humanity. I'm welcoming a very special guest today. All my guests are very special. We have today Captain Taylor Morgan. Say hi, Captain.
Ahoy.
We're going to be going through a video today where Taylor was pulled over, and we're going to be critiquing it and talking about different options and stuff like that. I know this video is going to get like 480 billion comments, so because everybody wants to chime in on this particular subject. So I know this is going to be probably my highest engagement video I've ever done. Which is fine. It's just kind of confusing, I think, because people come trying to learn something and they walk away more confused than they came in. So we'll try our best to put that into perspective as we go through this. And this is basically just more of an opinion video. I typically don't do a lot of opinion videos. This is going to be probably the most opinion-focused or opinion-centric video I've ever done. So keep that in mind as we move through this. In terms of you, I'd like to share a little bit about you. Can you tell, I'm going to put your Instagram up here, and I'd like you to just tell a little bit about your background and who you are and what you are. Because I think, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I believe that your whole kind of brand is sort of associated with what we're going to be looking at in the video.
Indeed. Yeah, health, fulfillment, and freedom. So I don't post content on the type of freedom that we are going to be talking about today until I won't post content about that until I understand it to your level of understanding. But when it says freedom there, first and foremost, it's talking about like physical freedom, like being able to do what you want physically, mental freedom, freedom from your own inner voice that is holding you back, emotional freedom. So that's what I mean by that. And then health. Yeah, living your healthiest, most fulfilling, and free life. That's what I'm all about.
I love it. Yeah, and I think that kind of, from what I can tell, that kind of kicks into what we're going to be talking about today. Even though, because there's a lot of people who wait a really long time to engage in this way with police and that kind of thing. And that was me, by the way. And you just kind of jumped right into it. And I know there's been a lot of people, even on my end, who have jumped all over me, being like, what the hell are you doing sharing this? This is like terrible example, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no. This is a wonderful example for people who learn about this information and they go out same day and they get pulled over and they're ready to fucking rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I'm a very much fuck around and figure it out type of guy. So
yeah, shout out to, go ahead.
I was going to say what I've found and what I'm imagining is that what we're talking about now and the stuff that you teach is like next level health, because really you can't be fully free and fully healthy as your highest embodiment self if you are a slave to anybody in any way. So it's excited to get into this. And yeah, this video that we're going to watch is by no means the best example because I just fucked around and found out. I was like, okay, let's see how this goes.
That's what I liked about it. That's why I was like, fuck yes. That's why I shared it, because I was just so into, and I'll talk a lot about that because I'm a fan of fuck around and find out as long as it's within the confines of some semblance of emotional stability. That's really the key to everything, right? And that's why I really enjoyed your video, which we'll get into in a moment. But big shout out to Joe Lustica. Joe Lustica is one of those kinds of people who would fit this kind of category. He stayed up all night when he first learned about my website. He stayed up all night. He read my whole state national authority page, and then he didn't even sleep. And then the next day, I believe it was the next day, he filed his first affidavit. I don't even remember what it was for. I think he sent something to the state or something, and he typed it up, and I'm just like, what in the bleep? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, Joe Lustica came out of the gate like red hot, going 15,000 miles an hour. So there are people like that out there, and I think this video, I definitely was not one of those people, even remotely. So I think this video will be very cool for that type of category, people who may be new to this. Okay? With that said,
I think one of the reasons that allows me to do that is because even though I don't like know the information to be able to repeat it in this way, I know it in my being. Like I've felt this way in my soul for a long time, and then especially after consuming your content, it just breaks it down. It's like, okay, so this is real. What I have been feeling this whole time, that we shouldn't be slaves to these quote unquote laws and regulations. Like, I know this in my being. So that's what allows me to take these actions in full faith that everything will work out exactly how it's supposed to.
1,000%. I agree with you entirely. It's just, I get a lot of messages too where it's like, I've always had this terrible feeling going to the DMV. I always knew something was wrong. I always knew, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's funny how you do know. That's the most amazing thing. We all really do know, So real quick, let's do a sound check on this. I want to make sure this is getting shared on your end. So I'm going to hit play, and I just want to make sure you can hear it, okay?
You have no license plate on your car, and you...
Can you hear that?
Good.
You can hear that, Taylor?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
Also, we're...
All right, so here's the video. We're going to go through it. This is on the Captain's channel. We can click on this, Captain's Lifestyle channel, okay? And
How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm going to go ahead and just hit play, and then we'll just pause it. It is kind of a long video. We'll see. We'll get through the whole thing. I might skip over some sections, okay? So let's just get rolling on this. You ready?
Let's do it.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Oh, what's the emergency?
The reason I stopped you is you have no license plate on your car, and you also were going above the speed limit.
Okay.
In case you had about 52, and the speed limit was 40. Have your driver's license, registration, and insurance?
No. Do you have a signed warrant or probable cause proving that I committed a crime
Committed a crime.
with a victim?
You
Who's the
committed-
victim?
Committed 2 violations.
Who is the victim of what crime?
You violated 2 vehicle codes.
No.
You did.
No.
No. So real quick. So obviously, it goes without saying, this whole video is from a very masculine point of view. Like, no woman's gonna watch this and be like, oh, I could do this. Women would handle the situation completely differently, and frankly, I think most women would actually be more successful at this than men. Doing it, because I think that men have a tendency to get into a little bit of friction.
Yes.
We just kind of, that's what we do. You know what I mean? So getting into friction is in my opinion, it's a surefire. It's like wrapping cinder blocks on your legs and throwing yourself into the river, like mafia style. Because once you lock into that energy with the other person, it becomes extremely, extremely difficult to get out of it. Because there's no affinity, there's no understanding of the other person, there's no concrete base to base anything off of. So it's like you're already assumed to be an enemy, and then when you start getting into the friction, now you start getting into that, and there's no way out. Basically, yeah, that's the way I look at it, right? If you knew the officer, or you had seen the officer before, or it was at Starbucks and you were like, oh hey officer, blah blah blah, and then later on you were pulled over and you recognize that officer and that officer recognized you, it might be a little different. You could maybe do that a little bit, and there's more of a leniency or a leeway there because there's something already kind of there. They at least recognize who you are. But especially with a female officer, and then you being fucking looking like Thor and shit, it's just I just feel like the whole thing just goes into a dark hole very, very rapidly.
Yeah, and I understand this is one of my biggest areas of opportunity, is how to engage in these types of situations with more tact and to completely take my emotion out of it and really come from a place of understanding, trying to understand their point of view and to better articulate the situation.
Yeah, with that said, I mean, this being your first time and you're kind of new to the information, again, that's why I liked this video so much. I still feel like you were pretty good, pretty stable. I mean, I know there's a lot of information online about roll the window down only partially and this kind of thing. I just feel like they need any reason to think that you are an enemy. And then once they think you're an enemy and your hands are down low, they can't see where your hands are at.
Yes.
You know, they're not getting paid the big bucks. You know what I mean? So your hands are down, you're in a truck, you're up high, the window is barely rolled down, they're thinking guns. You know what I mean?
Very suspicious, yes.
So the thing is that as soon as they start thinking guns, things get very bad very fast. And we've seen that online. I've been shown many examples where that kind of thing, and you have these videos where they're like saying the Sov sit stuff and all this kind of thing, which all the ones that I've been sent are horrible, terrible examples of what to do when you get pulled over. I mean, so bad. I mean, just giving them a 0 out of 10 would be friendly. They're so bad, obviously. That's why they got so bad. This one, you know, like having the window down rolled, I roll mine all the way down, and I'm in a car, so I'm like down low, so they're above, way towering above me, and they can see everything. And I keep my hands on the steering wheel, like I'm just trying to de-escalate the situation from the beginning to the point where like it never has an opportunity to escalate at all, emotionally, physically, or otherwise, right? So again, this is an opinion-based video, and I will also say, for my own opinion, I haven't been pulled over in a long time. Like I drive around with, for people who are unfamiliar with my platform, I have diplomatic plates, and I drive around in a 2009 Shelby GT500. It's got 800 horsepower. It's straight piped. It's very loud. The police really like my car. It's a very like. You know, it's kind of like all the memes where you see, like, this is what you expected your life to be when you got your sports car. There's girls everywhere. And then this is your life when you actually get the sports car, and it's dudes everywhere saying, hey, cool, nice car, dude. Love your car, dude. And it's, like, super gay. That's literally exactly what actually happens. So dudes like my car. Cops love my car. So there's also this kind of weird affinity that we have where every time a cop sees my car, they're like, hell yeah, bro. So it's also like, I don't get accosted by police just simply because my car is so fucking cool, quote unquote, to them. You know what I mean? It's like a homegrown kind of car. It's not some like super high end McLaren where they're like, fuck this rich piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. It's a GT500. It's like, I paid $28,000 for it. It's like now it's fucking 15 years old. So it's like, whatever. They just like it. They like the way it sounds. They can tell I've done a lot of work to it. So there's this high level of respect that I already have, this high level of rapport that I already have with an officer to the point where they don't even pull me over. I could do almost anything. And then my motorcycle is kind of the same category. So when you're in a nondescript car that may not build any like kind of automatic affinity, like for example, you ever see a guy in a fucking 1969 fastback Mustang pull over on the side of the road by police?
Unlikely.
No one has, because it doesn't happen. Because the amount of respect that almost every officer of the law has for a car like that is like, whoa, cool, badass car. Like, they're not going to even pull you over, okay? Now, the more
I've also heard you
car... Well, go ahead. I don't want to talk forever. Go ahead, Taylor.
I've also heard you talk about this from a more energetic perspective, like vibrational perspective, like because you are completely free and clear from the game that they are playing. There's like a karmic dissonance, like you're not attracting those situations. Me, yes. Clearly, there is still some karmic reason that I'm attracting this in my life, right?
Well, let me throw something out there at you, because maybe this is true, maybe it's completely false. As a content creator and as somebody who is an online personality, do you I mean, this is a great opportunity to create content too. So it's sort of like, even from a karmic aspect of getting pulled over for something positive, it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, I'm getting pulled over, thus there must be something I'm doing to karmically deserve that. It's also could be, I'm getting pulled over because I want to practice, or I'm getting pulled over because I want to create content, or this is an excellent opportunity to create content. Or it could be I'm getting pulled over because as a man, I want to test my ability to be masculine and deal with a masculine situation. It could be, it doesn't need to be something negative necessarily.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely not what I mean by karmic. I view situations as they are. One of my favorite quotes from Shakespeare is, "Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Right? So I view each of these situations that I'm in as learning experiences. What can I learn from this, and how can I and my community benefit from these situations? So for the audience doesn't know this, but I was also arrested last week, which I imagine we can get into some other time. But I was talking with one of my buddies on this, and we were talking about this kind of energetic level, vibration. I'm attracting these situations into my life, clearly. And he brought up a good point that there may still be some level of a need to feel powerful in me, that I'm just so anti-authority that I need to be free and to feel powerful, specifically regarding this last situation. But there may be some aspect of that to it. And so he mentioned to just be more humble too. And I've heard you talk about this too. Like, I have nothing against cops. Any of these people who I interact with on this video or the other arrest, I have nothing against them as human beings because I understand it from their perspective. My best friend is a cop. So, talking about just coming from a place of non-emotion and just helping each other understand each other.
Yeah. It's the more you learn, the more you realize that the law is actually there to benefit you, and you're just getting accosted, and it's just not really that big of a deal. But yeah, it just takes a while to learn all that and figure it all out and figure out how to apply it. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that we're going to get into in this video, it's almost more along the lines of diplomatic relations / psychology rather than legal, honestly.
Yes.
So let's get back into this video. Let me just share the screen again. People always ask me all the time, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? Again, it is theoretical, very theoretical. But to answer the question, what would I do? Do you have license and registration? I don't qualify. I don't legally qualify for a license. Why do you not legally qualify for a license? I am not a resident of any of the 50 states. That's all I would say. It would be perjury, which is up to 1 year in prison, for me to sign any documentation stating that I am a resident of any of the 50 states. Thus, I do not have a driver's license because it would require me to sign under penalty of perjury that I am a resident of one of the 50 states. So that's why I use my passport, and I have a private motor carrier DOT number at the federal level. The state level does not allow me to have foreign registration. The federal level, I can have foreign registration, and I would present to them the DOT. So if you go on to, let me share my screen. DOT number lookup. So anyone, you don't have to be a police officer, anyone can do a DOT check. Okay, and I'll show you how that works. It's very, very simple. Oops. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So here is it's called the company snapshot, and you can just type in, literally into Google, you can just type in DOT number lookup, and it'll pop right up, right? So if you just type in my DOT number, 4043625, enter, right? You can see here that anyone, including the police, can pull up this document. Okay, and this document is an entire snapshot of your entire DOT situation, right? So entity type carrier, it's active, when was the form date, all the info, right? By the way, this address goes nowhere and this phone number goes nowhere, so don't call me. And we have This is cut off. This actually says official guest of the United States. You can see it on the printout that I have. Private for private property, private passenger, non-business. You can see the check marks. It is interstate. Cargo carried is household goods, passengers, and private property. You can see here. Okay, and they can look this up if they want to, right? And I also have a copy of this available for them, and I call this piece of paper my registration, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the only legal registration that I can carry as a foreigner. So it's a federal level registration, and that's the way that I would describe the situation to the officer, and I would present the officer with the passport, card, or book, and I would present to them this company snapshot. Okay?
Question on the passport, because at the time I had my passport card in my vehicle at the time. I just forgot about it, so I didn't present it to them in this situation. But they obviously looked me up, and like I have a license, but I don't know, clearly having the updated passport didn't make any difference in the outcome of this situation. So is that something they have to look up separately, like with the passport number?
Did you give them the passport, or did you give them...
I did not. I didn't. I just gave them my affidavit of status. I forgot I had the passport card.
Oh
in
yeah,
there
the
at the
affidavit
time.
of status. Yeah. Let's see here. Give me. We're gonna take a quick break here. Just give me 2 seconds, okay? Okay, we're back. So you had you had the passport on you, but you didn't hand it to them. You handed them the affidavit of status, correct?
Correct.
And what was on that affidavit of status?
Basically, just saying that I am not a entity. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I am a living, breathing man, essentially, and with the codes, and I'm a man of God, and I follow God's law. And if there is a victim, if I have damaged anybody's property, stolen anything, if I've committed an actual crime, then yes, please hold me accountable to that. I don't remember exactly everything that's on. It's a long thing, and I printed it out a long time ago. This was from, the one that I got was from Alphonse Fagiolo. Are you familiar with him?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was about, that was before I started your free course. So that I would say that was about close to a year ago.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with affidavit of status. It's just that, again, it comes down more of a psychology point. When you say na, you can't get me, what do people tend to do?
They want to get you.
Yeah, it's human reaction.
And that's exactly what I do. That I provoke it from the cops. It's like,
yeah,
let's go, motherfuckers.
There's a lot of that even in what I do. It's very, very, very common. Women don't do that typically, by the way, which I find very interesting. So let's go ahead and just watch this, and let's get further through this video, especially to that point. Okay, just real quick on this. Her being female, you being in a truck and looking like Thor and being up high and having your window down like that and then reaching around. Yeah. I know it's your first time, but that's a recipe for very bad things to happen. I mean, I'm sure you probably realize that.
Yes.
If you were in like a Mazda Miata and it was like a big dude and he could like look and he was like just towering over you, like maybe you could reach around and it wouldn't be as much of an issue, but mixing all the elements together, it's like, yeah, like no. If a fucking little blonde woman, you know what I mean? Like she's probably literally holding herself together pretty well, but she is probably literally like totally freaking out in her mind.
Got the alarms going for sure. I don't know if you noticed, but like once I started doing that, she like looked back and was like, "Do I have backup?"
Yeah, dude, that's just like even a guy is gonna get a little bit spooked, but a chick, it's like Jesus fuck, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just just that's what we're here to do. Is we're here to look this over, and you have to put yourself in their shoes. I feel like the more you put yourself in their shoes, the more successful you'll be, and that goes for anything in life: sales, dating. That's just across the boards. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So let's keep moving through this. No, no. I do love that. I mean, even getting water, I would drink it and I would put it up on the dash. Especially being in a truck. You're in a truck, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tahoe.
Like I would literally have my hands above the window line basically the whole time. I would never put my hands down below not because I'm scared necessarily. You know what I mean? Just
not
to
to
keep,
give them a shadow of a doubt.
Well, like I said, if you start to get into hostilities and you start to get into freaking them out, it's very, very hard to get out of it. That's the thing. It's like stepping in a bear trap. Once you step in, it's going to be tough to get out. You're kind of fucked. It's like anything you can do to keep it from going in that direction is so important, especially on the front end, because if you can keep it out of that black morass, then you have a really, really good chance of handling the situation really well. Once you step into that bear trap, the difficulty level rises like 100x. You know what I mean?
Both of our guards are up. And
Yeah.
that just creates friction.
Yeah. So let's keep rolling on this. That's what I'm saying.
Do it for the gram.
You are. I mean, I would do that. I wouldn't necessarily make a show out of it, but I would have my camera on, and I would even tell the officer, like, what I would probably say is a little different. What I would probably say is something like, I actually train ambassadors at large and diplomats how to actually interact with police officers. And I just want to let you know I am recording this, and it may be used for educational non-commercial purposes, something like that. But that's what I actually do. So you know what I mean, like that. That's what I would say, because that's what I actually do. So if it would have never gotten bad, they probably would have never asked you to step out of the vehicle. So now you're in the bear trap. You see. Mm-hmm. So the answer to that would be I'm a non-resident alien of state of California, and I'm actually not a resident of any of the 50 states. Because the way they look at it is, if you're a resident of any, not just state of California, if you're a resident of any of the 50 states, you'd be under the California Vehicle Code. But the smart way of saying you don't have jurisdiction over me, you can't get me, is I'm not a resident of any of the 50 states at all. It's saying the same thing, but it won't trigger an emotional defensive response.
Right.
You see? You can say I'm here in Laguna Beach, but I am not a resident of Laguna Beach, because when you say I am a resident of Laguna Beach, you're saying that from their perspective, the way they translate that is you are a resident of the corporation called City of Laguna Beach. Do you see? Mm-hmm. I am not a resident of Laguna Beach. I am not a resident of California. I'm just visiting. I'm a tourist. I'm a foreigner. I'm a foreign diplomat. You could that's the direction I would go, because I actually am. So but you could just say I'm a foreigner. I don't live here. If they say where are you from, you can say anything. You could say Antarctica, because keep in mind the definition of naturalization is the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. So when you tell them that you are a resident of Antarctica, what you're actually doing in that moment is you're actually naturalizing into Antarctica. Did you know that?
That's so wild, yes.
Yeah. So when you tell them that you're not a resident, and they say, well, where are you a resident of? And you say France, when you said France, you've now naturalized into France. That's how it works. In statutory terminology, that's how it actually physically works. How long is that affidavit? Is it like 3 or 4 pages, or is it longer?
No, it's about three pages, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I was going to give them anything, it would need to be like a half page. There's no way I would hand them multiple pages of documents. The one thing that I do carry around in my car, I can do a screen share, is you go to Google and type in Diplomatic and Consular Immunity Guide for Law Enforcement. it'll pop right up. I have it on my website, but if you can find it on, give me 1 second here. We have Diplomatic and Consular Immunity Guide. Share screen. So if you type it into Google, it'll come up and you can actually download it straight from the Department of State. You don't have to go on my website. I think it's good that people know that it's not just some shit that I found somewhere on the internet. I mean, you can literally get it from the State Department. Community, I printed this off in very nice color. I went to Kinko's and paid probably $21 to print this document, double-sided. And it is a lot. This is the only large documentation that I would ever hand a police officer. And I do have this in my car. And so I have the private motor carrier DOT number. I have printed off the definition of a private motor carrier from the FMSCA website so they can see that it's a real thing. And then I have my private motor carrier DOT lookup, my registration. And then I have this document as well. And I just tell the officer, look, I don't know if you've ever interacted with a diplomat before, but if you're not familiar with the information, I'm going to go ahead and present this with you. And it also has a 24-hour hotline right here. Diplomatic Security Command Center, consular notification, and immunity issues. And I would point to the officer, and I let the officer know that if he has any questions, he can email or call any of these offices. And then the other thing I would do is, per the Diplomatic and Consular Immunity Guide, they can detain you until they can verify your identity. So I would also tell the officer, see right here, Office of Foreign Missions, right? So they can call any of these hotlines or whatever they want. For whatever reason, I don't think, when people tell the officers this, I don't think they really even make the call. I think they just cut them loose. I don't know why. From all the reports I've gotten, it just seems like that's what happens. I don't have any way of really verifying that. But you also want to tell the officer that, by law, you can detain me until you can verify my identity. And I would tell the officer, look, I understand that anyone could say they're anything. So, I'm more than happy to sit here and kind of hang out while you verify my identity. And you have your hands up and they can see them. You see, it just keeps everything very, very calm, and it allows them to do their job the best way they see fit. I wouldn't hand them an affidavit. I just think that's, while it is true, it is functional, and it is actually legally true that you can do that. I just think that you're raising the tension meter. If there was like a tension meter, you're raising that tension meter a little bit by issuing those documents to the police officer. So it just depends if that's what you want to do. But I'm always trying to figure out how do you interact in a way that does not increase that tension meter at all. I want the whole thing to start at a 0, and I want the whole thing to end at a 0 on the tension meter. Mm-hmm. So let's keep rolling with this. So, I mean, you can say a U.S. national or national of the United States or non-citizen national. That's using their terminology. I'm not even sure the police would know what that is, but that's the actual legal terminology on that, if you wanted to say that. A U.S. national, you would have to have pledged allegiance to the United States in order to say that you're a U.S. national, technically, because if we get into, just to swing over to that real quick, let's see here, 8 U.S.C. 1101, subsection A22. The term national of the United States means A, citizen of the United States, or B, a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. So you could say that you were, if you wanted to use the terminology that would classify you in section B, you would say a non-citizen national of the United States. Just to be very, very pedantic about the whole thing and use exact terminology. Going back to...
But like you said, I don't imagine the cops know, like they would have any idea of what
possibly.
that means.
Possibly. There is a lot of information even in the diplomatic and consular immunity guide about U.S. nationals, nationals of the United States, and non-citizen nationals. There's a whole section. So you could even say, you know, I'm a non-citizen national of the United States, and you can even say in the diplomatic and consular immunity guide, there is information about that if you would like to know more from the State Department directly. So let's continue on this video. Now, if you notice, look what she's doing. What is she doing right now? You see it?
Mm-hmm.
What is she doing? Can you see it?
She's looking.
Looking for what?
Trouble. My hands.
She's looking for your hand. She's looking for weapons. She's looking for knives. She's looking for guns. She's looking for bombs. She's looking for everything, right? I do have to admit, they're also pretty fucking calm. It's honestly impressive on both sides of the spectrum. It's impressive on your end, and it's also impressive on their end, to be honest with you. This could have gotten a whole lot worse. It's like, I like that. Yeah, I like the fucking, like, no fucking way that's happening, bro. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I just looked this up, I think today or yesterday. I was doing some research on the word identity. Identity, the actual legal definition of identity means like verification of sameness, meaning like verification that one thing is that of which it says it is, or it is the same as something else. Like, is this your name? Like, you are identifying with that name. Or is this your car? You are identifying the fact that you and the car have some sort of sameness of possession, right? So you also have to keep in mind too is that, you know, the definition of the term identify means sameness. So you know, what it's a relative aspect. They're asking you, they don't realize this because they don't know the definition of the word identify, but the definition of the word identify would be sameness, or a relativity between you saying that you are something or some name or some symbol, and then it being verified through some third-party source that you are that thing or name or symbol. So failing to identify, you know, if you take it really literally, the word fail means attempting to do something and then your intended intention was not completed. That's the definition of failing. And then identify would be to verify sameness. So failing to identify is kind of a really weird terminology if you really break it down, because failing to prove through a third party, you know, attempting to prove through a third party source that you are the same as some symbol or word or name, and then through the activities of you attempting to do that, you weren't able to do that. So you know, if I said that I failed to identify, I would say, well, identify means sameness. So what is the sameness of which you are trying to verify that I am the same as? They're not going to be able to answer
I think that would just blow their mind. No.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to answer that question. But it gets them to think. It's like, I would like to identify, but I need to be able to identify in a way to where I'm not failing. How can I do that? You see? You would put that problem on their doorstep to figure out. I can't give you a driver's license because I don't legally qualify to have one. I would like to identify myself, but I'm honestly not sure how. Can you help me do it? Now you flip the whole thing around on their doorstep. You see? The traveling versus driving thing has gotten so bad that you so much as even say that, and the tension meter just goes to like fucking 10 instantly. So it's just pointless. It's very sad. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, it just is what it is. I would personally never bring up driving versus traveling. That's just like waving a gun in the air.
Is that because the sovereign citizens have kind of overused
that? I just wouldn't ever bring that up. That's just not. It's just too lost. Meaning, like, it's got so much emotional reaction, and there's so much information online about it, and it's so associated with. It's just like, it's like we've lost that. That's just like gone. You know, in my opinion. The guy you're with is pretty fucking good too, honestly. Really impressive the way that he was handling the situation. I mean, it is a lot easier for him because he's not in the hot seat. You know what I mean? See, they're freaked out. You got them freaked out, looking around, asking about weapons, like they think you've got guns.
The weapon.
Yeah, when they think you've got guns and they think that you'll use it, ooh, that's bad. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And by the way, that's typically why they want you to get out of the car. Because they're so nervous about weapons and guns and your hands being down and they can't see anything, and that's why they just want to get you out of the car. They just want to get you out of the car. They just want to get you out of the car. It's actually a defensive mechanism. I know there's information online about then they can do stuff and I don't know. There may or may not be some truth to that. I really do believe there is a real fear and terror associated with the idea that there could be guns ablaze in here any second, you know. There's a lot of stuff on it online. There's a lot of videos on it online. It is everyone, whether they're on the actual sovereign citizen side of the spectrum, meaning like if they really believe that kind of crap and they really do act that way, or even people who don't and they actually take this very seriously and they study it for a long time and they really know what they're talking about, it typically is statistically every single person involved with law, studying law, understanding the law, acting with the law, owns arms. I mean, I couldn't even imagine a person getting into this that wouldn't own arms, to be honest with you. So statistically, anyone they encounter that's going to be talking about any of this information in any way is going to be an owner of some sort of arm or firearm. And that's true. That's actually factually true. So keep in mind that if you so much as even start talking about anything about the rights, the Constitution, your rights, the law, anything, like they probably think, you know, arms or firearms, because that's factually true. I mean, have you ever met anyone who's into any of this stuff that doesn't love and own guns? I mean, I don't think I ever have, ever.
Yeah, it's definitely the majority.
Yeah. So there you go. You know what I mean? So is this nervousness justified? I mean, I would say yes.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's good. I would have definitely turned the car off. I like stuff to yield you.
Me too.
It's fun. So he must have read or at least skimmed over your affidavit to say something like that.
Yeah, he clearly did.
I mean, if you want like the actual, I mean, you can even print off the definition of a U.S. national from 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection 822, and then you can also print off. Let me see here. I mean, if you want to carry all this shit, I wouldn't hand all this to them, but it would be nice just to have a few things to hand in case the officer like this, which is I think is kind of rare, where you're going to see an officer who will actually have discourse with you, which is pretty cool, especially after how much tension there already was. Him being willing to come in and have a communication with you is pretty cool. He sort of brought the tension level of the interaction way, way down, which is very, very kind of him to do and very admirable, right? You could have 22 U.S.C. 212 persons entitled to passport. You could print this off and have this available. I wouldn't just hand him a stack of papers. But in a situation like this, you'd say, I'm a U.S. national and I have a passport, because you have to, you can look at, and all they need to read is just this one sentence. It's not like they have to read a whole freaking affidavit. The sentence says that no passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons than those owing allegiance, whether citizen or not, to the United States. And you would just say, I'm not a citizen, but I do owe allegiance to the United States. I don't know how the hell that would process in a police officer's mind. It could process in a way where he starts asking you additional questions. He might just shut down and say, fuck this. This has got to be some fake bullshit, blah, 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 whatever. And if you get that kind of reaction, just say, officer, just look on your phone, type in 22 U.S.C. 212, and it'll pop right up. You don't need to use my print off, I don't know how that would roll out, but I'm just saying if you wanted to use the exact specific terminology and you wanted to show exact specific references, which is what I would be doing if I was in the situation, that's what you would show to show that you are not a citizen of the United States, but you do owe allegiance to the United States. Okay? So a U.S. national, a non-citizen U.S. national is not necessarily bound by the California Vehicle Code. Again, that's like saying, nah, you can't touch me. So I don't know if I would even say that. But if I was in really, really good rapport with the officer, I may say something like that. But I would have to be. It's kind of like a video game where there's a bunch of different meters. You have a rapport meter, you have a pressure meter, you have a tension meter, you have a fear meter, and it's kind of like the dash cluster on a car. You know what I mean? And it sounds complicated. It's sort of like the memes where you see like. Women are so complicated they'll never understand them, and then it'll be but men understand this, and it shows the cluster of a fucking car cluster. I think these are so funny, you know. It's like so the idea that this is so complicated and Brandon's making it so complicated. No, I think that this is the world we live in. You know, it's the dash cluster of a car is really the things that you should know when you're operating a car. You know. When you're working with a woman and you're interacting with a woman, you know, there's a fun meter, there's a safety meter, there's a passion meter, there's a sexual meter, there's all these different things. It's like you should have your idea and your pulse on these various things, and I think this is no different. You know what I mean? This discourse is really great, by the way. I think this is fantastic. If this kind of discourse occurred more often, there just wouldn't really be a lot of issues between people and the police in general. This is what it's all about, and this is one of the things that I really enjoyed about this video. But now, real quick on this one, if you really want to get into the driving versus traveling thing, I feel like I'm just now thinking about it because this is kind of getting me to kind of cook my brains a little bit here. This is how I would do the driving versus traveling. I would go and print off, and I think I actually did print this off and put it in my car. I forget all the things I have in my car. I wouldn't hand the cop a whole stack of shit, but I have like certain things that, if needed, I would like to be able to show them rapidly. And if I don't have phone access or I have bad service, I want to make sure I have paper copies to hand. 49 CFR 390.5T. I believe this is it here. And you have the definition of driver. Now, Title 49 is transportation. Okay? So you can say the transportation title, Title 49, and you can print this off. Driver means any person who operates any commercial vehicle. Okay? And if you want to be really fun and silly, you take this, you print this off, and then you also print off the definition of the word person from this section. So person means an individual, firm, corporation, partnership, association, state, municipality, commission, or political subdivision of a state, or any interstate body, as well as a department, agency, or instrumentality of the executive, legislative, or judicial branches of the federal government. This definition includes railroads. Now, now the cool thing about a situation like this is, from a psychological standpoint, if you get the officer to laugh, you can bring the tension meter down. So you could smile, look at the officer and say, "Now, officer, I know it might seem a little shocking, but I'd like to let you know I'm not a railroad." You know what I mean? Yeah. But you wouldn't be a smart-ass dick about it. You'd be like a fun jokester about it, right? If it's not nah, you can't get me energy, it's well, officer, you know, you're telling me I'm this thing, and I just got to tell you, I'm just not. I'd love to be, you know, but I'm just not. If I had to attest under penalty of perjury that I am a driver, I'd be going to prison. That's the way I would say it. You flip it in a way where, you know, it's not nah, you can't get me. It's I'm not going to fucking jail, bro. Like, you think I'm going to jail? I'm not going to fucking jail. So if you think I'm going to tell you under penalty of perjury, or tell anybody under penalty of perjury, that I'm a fucking railroad, you got another thing coming, though, because, you know, I ain't. You know what I mean? That's just a joke, though, you know what I mean? But you could print off definition of person, you can print off definition of driver, and you could say, you know, officer, I know there's a lot of confusion here. I just wouldn't ever say driving versus traveling. I just say, you know, I'm just not a driver as per the definition from Title 49. I feel like that is getting pretty close to the traveling versus driving thing without actually triggering something that would cause the officer to go, oh, sovereign citizen, and then now the tension meter goes to the roof, and now they want to get you out of the car. You see?
Right.
That's what you want to prevent. Okay. Let's jump back into this here. So again, identification is sameness. So they're trying to identify you are the same as what? You know, it's a bit of a smart-ass move. I don't really know how it would go over, but you know, when they ask you to do something, the activity of you doing that of which they ask you to do is called performance. Okay. And you would say, from a purely legal standpoint, a purely contractual standpoint, you would say, you have requested me to do an activity, and that activity is called identify. I am attempting to perform. You're telling me that I'm failing to perform. I don't know how to perform. How can we proceed in a way where I can perform?
I like that.
That's the legal, very, very specific, like highly trained lawyer version of I can't do what you're asking me to do. It's physically impossible. You see?
And help me understand how I can.
Yeah. Help me understand how I can. Because now you've got them thinking and asking questions. Once their mind is starting to ask questions and think, that's when the tension meter is going to go down, because now they're like, well, wait a second. How does he do this? Well, fuck. And now they're going to actually analyze the situation. They're not analyzing the situation. And the more the tension meter goes up, the lower they're going to analyze this. The analyzation meter goes down as the tension meter goes up. So let's keep going on this. See, the basic idea that police have, which is very sad, by the way, is that everyone is these caged, wild, violent animals. And if we don't keep everything under control and lawlessness were to become the norm, the entire society would burn to the ground in a matter of seconds. Or some variation of that idea, right? So
chaos.
The problem is that they, in their own mind, are attempting to prevent chaos. And when you say, you know, blah, 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 all these different things, they think lawlessness, they think the silverback gorilla is getting out of the zoo and killing children, and they get nervous. But they get nervous from a point of view that's actually, from their own perspective, very helpful, you see? That's the issue. The issue is that the typical human being is not an evil, psychopathic villain that as soon as you release the chains, they're going to rush out into the streets and murder as rapidly and as viciously as possible through bloodthirst. That's just not true. That's the actual issue. The actual issue is that a vast majority of people are actually good people, and this issue is just not real. And that's the assumption that they are under, and that is the assumption that when you say things like nah, you can't get me, or you don't have jurisdiction over me, they freak out in their mind. It's like they're actually start to like shake, they're like freaking out. So when you say that, that's what you're going to experience. I think every single time I've had someone message me and say I was arrested, I literally trace it back every single time to the exact point when they said, nah, you can't get me. Some variation of that was said, and that is what started everything. That is what started the downfall of the interaction. Every single time. And that's what I base everything that I'm saying on the show is based off of, like, hundreds or thousands of third-party interactions that I've had through other people, through videos, through them explaining the situation to me, to reading tickets, to all the stuff. And that's kind of what has developed into what I'm talking about on this show. You know what I mean? So let's keep going through this. If you want to, so whoops, did I get kicked out?
It looks like it.
Uh-oh. Where was I when I was kicked out?
You're going over talking about jurisdiction and how that can cause their, the nana boo boo, you can't get me. It's like, okay, we're going to arrest this guy.
Okay, so it was just like a minute. It was just been like a minute or something?
Yeah, it's
okay,
not
good.
long.
Jesus Christ. Okay, good. Wow, that was weird. It said no internet connection, and I freaked out. Okay, so let's get back into that. Sorry about that. Let's see. Anything you wanted to say so far? I don't want to just anything you want to add or anything you want to.
No, this is this is great. I'm absorbing the information, and it's good to get another breakdown of this.
Okay, cool. So let's keep going. I don't think I said anything. Oh, I was going to say, I think when it cut out, I was going to say another thing you could print out if you want to, just to have as reference material, is the definition from Title 49, that same definition we were looking at earlier. The definition of commercial, you can see here, driver means any person who operates any commercial motor vehicle. So operates has a special definition. I wouldn't get into this one with the officer. It's just way too complex and convoluted. But you could print off this one, and then you also could print off commercial motor vehicle. So you could say, in accordance with Title 49, I'm not operating a commercial motor vehicle as per the definition from Title 49, which would be this one here, right? Commercial motor vehicle means any self-propelled or towed motor vehicle used on a highway in interstate commerce. Now, keep in mind the word interstate means between states. Intrastate means inside of a state. Interstate, and they actually have that. You can see that even here. In the DOT motor carrier lookup, the company snapshot, if you go down, I can prove that very, very rapidly right here. Right? Interstate, intrastate. See? Intra means inside of that state. Inter means in between states.
There must be some lag because I'm not seeing whatever's on your screen. It's still the definition of commercial motor vehicle.
Oh, yes. Let me. I'm trying a new way of doing this where I share just the tab because I think it'll come up better on the final product. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. So here's the company snapshot. And if you go down to carrier operation, you can see interstate and you can see intrastate, right? Mm-hmm. When you first get your private motor carrier DOT number, it defaults to intrastate. You have to actually log in to your online login. You have to actually fill out the same form, like an updated registration type form. They may have fixed this recently. I don't think they did. And you have to actually resubmit the form to get the interstate. You actually can't get, I don't believe you can get interstate on the initial filling out of the DOT. You have to actually go into your actual login and refile it, which is a bit weird, but anyways. So going back to the definition of commercial motor vehicle or whatever it was, commercial motor vehicle, means any self-propelled or towed motor vehicle used on a highway in interstate commerce to transport passengers or property when the vehicle, and it literally just cuts off. I don't even know. I've never seen that before. But that's fine. You can just cut it off right here. So you would say, I'm not operating a motor vehicle in interstate commerce to transport passengers or property. That'd be the same thing as saying I'm not driving. Mm-hmm. You could get into all the goofiness and the railroad and all that, but this is more specific. Okay. And you just print that off and you just show the officer, look, I'm not operating a commercial motor vehicle. And it's not interstate. I'm not operating interstate. And I'm not, as you can see, and you can look around and you can even verify that you are not transporting your friend for any fee, rate, fare, charge, or any other compensation. That would be the question. Like if I was a police officer and I pulled somebody over, the first thing I'd ask the passenger is, are you paying any fee, rate, charge, or other consideration to be transported by the driver here, or the whatever? And if they said no, then fine. That's the question they should actually be asking you, right?
That's the definition of
legally
commercial.
Well, there might be a lot of people watching this show and being like, this is all horse shit and Brent's full of shit. The thing is this, look, if you operate this way, When you get into a court of law, that's where all the details of all this are going to get hashed out, right? So if you operate this way, if you operate as though on the side of the road, you're essentially in a court case. By the time you actually get into the courtroom, things are going to look really good for you, and you can win money, and you can
court coming up on the 29th.
Yeah, I operate as though everything is a court case. Every single word that comes out of my mouth is either building their evidence or it's building my evidence, right? And I mean, that's just the way I operate in every area of my life. So I want to clearly communicate that there is nothing in the vehicle that is being transported for any sort of compensation, fee, rate, charge, or any other exchange of monetary value. And the passenger that I have here is not being transported for any fee, rate, charge, or any other consideration or anything of value. Thus, I would not be operating a commercial motor vehicle. Thus, I would not fit the definition of driver from Title 49. I feel like that's a way to say driving versus traveling without increasing the tension meter. But I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I could be
to
wrong.
make it make sense to them.
Yeah, because if you say it that way in a court of law, that's a very strong position. Do you see? So I just pretend as though I'm in a court of law. Because then if you get the body cam footage through a Freedom of Information Act request, I mean, there's no fucking chance you're going to lose in court. I mean, there's just no way. And then you can counterclaim and you can get damages. So once you counterclaim, so the way that counterclaim works is you are suing them as a defensive mechanism to them suing you, and by them writing up a traffic violation is them suing you. It's called a complaint. So if you sue them or if you countercomplaint it, it's really cool because if you do it in a way that's very, very solid and very, very stable and very, very legal, it immediately obliterates their entire claim. But now your counterclaim is still on the table. So you take away all their fangs, and you've already sunk your teeth into them, and now you're going for damages. Mm-hmm. I feel like that is where you go for the win. You go for the win in the counterclaim. You don't go for the win on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm. How can I submit a counterclaim?
Well, I don't know exactly how all of that works in great detail because I don't even know if the traffic court is even like a real court. Like it might just be like a lower level administrative court. Yeah. If that's the case, you would have to sue in an actual court or like a court of federal claims or something like that. If the traffic court is a real court, then you could counterclaim within that court. Or you could even counterclaim within that court, and if they dismiss you and don't give you the time of day and they don't behave as though they're supposed to, then you would take that information as evidence to an upper court, and you would sue that whole court in an upper court, and you would recommend that upper court correct the lower administrative court, right? Which I feel is a very masculine energy. That's what we're supposed to be doing as men.
Yes. So
going back into this video, and if you want to see some really hilarious videos, it's very sad. I don't want to police bash. I have some police on my stuff. My brother's in the sheriff's office. But if you go on to YouTube and type in police officer deposition, you will realize that the typical police officer knows literally nothing. Like they ask the officers simple things like the definition of the word arrest, the definition of the word detain. Did you detain them? Yes. Did you arrest them? Yes. Do you know the difference between a detain and arrest? No. Like, how long have you been on the force? 15 years. Like, what are you, lieutenant? Like, how did you get there? Like, I don't know. Like, literally, like, these depositions are like make you want to fucking weep. They're so bad. So keep in mind when you counterclaim and you handle this in a court of law, you can depose these police officers, and I hate to say it, but it is the most cruel thing you could ever do to a police officer is depose a police officer. I mean, you just obliterate every inch of their self-respect. You obliterate their entire career. You obliterate their entire reputation. I mean, their whole existence is literally washed off the face of the earth. I would almost go so far as to say it's actually pretty cruel. Well, if you get approved to motion the case into discovery, You can depose the officer very easily.
Meaning,
So
if
keep
the
in mind,
individual officer allows their whole identity to be shattered.
No, because the thing is that if they lie during a deposition and you can prove it, you can put the officer in prison. You can motion the court to hold the officer in contempt, and you can literally motion the court to issue an order for the officer's arrest.
What I mean by that is, as men and women, we each have control over our identity. So, yes, most cops have their full identity in I am a cop, just like football players' identities, I'm a football player. And you see this with, athletes get injured. It's like, okay, I've lost my whole identity. What now? So what I meant by that is if the individual officer allows their identity to be shattered. So this is kind of off topic, but it's
Yes, but the thing is that if you ask them a question such as, do you know the definition of the word detain? Do you know the difference between detain and arrest? And they say yes. Then the next logical question is, okay, what is the difference? Now, they're on camera. So if they say something really dumb, they don't have the option. Their reputation is now destroyed. So you mean to tell me you're a lieutenant of 15 years, and you mean to tell me that the difference, you're telling me the difference between detain and arrest is, and you just repeat what they just said, and they say, yes, you have just destroyed their entire existence. They are gone. And there's nothing they can do about it. So when you realize the power that you have in the court system, in the judicial system, it will create a lot of calmness for you in a traffic stop. You only feel jittery and freaked out in a traffic stop because you feel like you have no control over the situation. You have no idea how much control you have over the situation. You can destroy this man or woman's entire existence,
which is
with
not
like
what I
almost
want to do.
No effort. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, when you realize that you have that power, when you realize that you can do that, you become very humble. We're talking about humbleness at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very humble. Take my car, please. I'd love to see it. You see, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I'd be thinking that in the back of my head. It's just kind of one of those things where when you realize how the system works and you realize what we actually have here in the glorious United States of America / United States, the two countries we have here, it's actually really pretty awesome. That's the part that I don't think anybody gets. Anyways, so let's get back into this. Exactly. He's not going to understand that, but yeah, exactly. See what I mean? He's literally telling you exactly what I said, right? He knows, and this is the way cops think. If they let you go and they don't enforce the law, all hell is going to break loose.
Yeah.
All hell. The ground is going to tear open, and the minions of Satan are going to pour into the streets by the millions, and everything is going to be a wasteland in like 10 seconds. So the state of California is a person, and that's the problem.
Yeah, by definition, yeah.
That's the problem, So the assertion, right? And that's a beautiful place for litigation. The assertion is that your behavior has harmed the person called state of California. Okay, no problem. Now they assert that. Now they have to prove it. You're innocent until proven guilty. Now you have to prove that the person called state of California has been harmed. They're going to be like, we've never had anybody ask us that before. So it's an interesting conversation. Even that alone is an interesting conversation, you see? I mean, you could even go into what is the definition of victim and how does that work and how to qualify it and how to quantify it. I mean, you start asking a lot of these questions, you get people thinking. And that's the real danger. When you start getting people thinking, that's when really crazy things happen and really good things happen, is when people are actually thinking. When they stop assuming and they start thinking. And when you get
Towards
people
the
thinking,
end.
Yeah.
Towards the end, a couple of them start to contemplate some of this stuff.
And that's the power. That's the real power right there. See, the problem that they don't understand, and the problem I didn't even understand until like today or yesterday, is identify as sameness as. They're typing it in and they're saying that this natural person is sameness as the artificial person. That's the issue, right? It's the identification of sameness of two entirely different things. There is not sameness between these two things. The assumption that there is sameness between these two things, that's the issue, right? So identification, it's like I'm not failing to identify, actually. You're actually failing to identify. You're attempting to attach a natural person to an artificial person and say that there is a sameness or an identification between those two things when there is not. It is a physical impossibility for a natural person to be the same as or identified with an artificial person or an ens legis. And that's the issue. I'm not sure if I would say that, but it's good to know that like that's actually the technical aspect of what's actually occurring. Now, keep in mind too, the whole point of driver's licenses and all this stuff and everything else, it all comes down to the motor vehicle theft prevention program. This is basically like the entire operation of what police officers are trained to do. They don't understand that they're trying to do this, but if you look at like their activities, they pull you over, they establish residency, and then they want to establish identification, right? If you look in the motor vehicle theft prevention program, you'll see that it literally says that the whole point of it is to identify the driver of the vehicle and then verify that the driver of the vehicle is in legal possession of the vehicle. So what they're trying to figure out, the whole basis of all police traffic stops is the motor vehicle theft prevention program from 34 USC 12611. They don't even know that they're doing this, but this is the program they're operating off of. And if you read this program, you will see that this is everything they're trying to do. They just don't know that, right? They're trying to verify that you are in legal possession of the vehicle. They're trying to verify that the vehicle isn't stolen. They even say that. We just need to make sure the vehicle isn't stolen. You'll hear that a lot from them. They don't realize that this is what they're doing. They're just running through this program. And if you read the program, then you know their entire playbook literally better than they do, because they don't even know that that's what they're operating off of. They know the technicalities and functionalities of the motor vehicle theft prevention program on a very mechanical level, but they don't understand that that's what it actually is, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, that trespassing was for not wearing a mask in the Austin airport. A week later, all the bans were lifted.
See, they're trying to operate using the motor vehicle theft prevention program. So they're trying to identify you, and then they're trying to identify the vehicle, and they're trying to verify that you are either the registered owner or legally in possession of the vehicle. But again, they'd have no idea that they're operating off of 34 USC 12611. Yeah, so reasonable suspicion. So this is very, 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 very important. Now, first and foremost, even police don't know this, but technically speaking, if you have active registration sticker and you read the motor vehicle theft prevention program, you don't need RAS. So even the police think you need RAS. In that situation specifically, you actually don't, which is horrifying. Even the police would be horrified to hear that, which is hilarious, and goes to show you that they're trying as hard as they can to actually make sure that they follow laws, because technically speaking, they don't need reasonable articulable suspicion at all. If you look at the motor vehicle theft prevention program, it says here it has to clearly explain. Now, obviously, this program is all fraudulent because they didn't explain any of this to you, but that's besides the point. Clearly explain that the participation in the program means that if the participating vehicle is being operated under the specified conditions, law enforcement officials may stop the vehicle and take reasonable steps to determine whether it is being operated by or with the consent of the owner, even if the law enforcement officials have no other basis for believing that the vehicle is being operated unlawfully. So the way that it actually works is if you have active registration stickers, you have paid money to voluntarily involve yourself in a commercial activity that is supposed to be basically protecting you. So basically, you've hired these cops to do what they're doing. That's what registration actually is. If you don't have active registration, they would need to have reasonable articulable suspicion. They think they always need RAS. That's just plainly false. If you have a registration sticker, they do not need RAS. If you do not have a registration sticker, then they do need RAS. Now, what is reasonable, articulable suspicion? Let me pull up another window here. You're following me so far, by the way?
Yeah. This is great.
So reasonable, articulable suspicion. Now, if you say those words or RAS, the cop's probably going to think you're like a lawyer or you have police in your family or something. Because it's not typically something that most people will say, right? So saying RAS or reasonable, articulable suspicion immediately can lower the tension meter a little bit because So this is just an article. We're not going to get into that. What is the legal definition of reasonable, articulable stuff here? Let's see. I want to try to stay away from articles. Here we go. This is probably better. When an officer stops someone to search the person, courts require that the officer has either a search warrant, probable cause to search, or a reasonable suspicion to search. In descending order of what gives the officer the broadest authority to perform a search. Courts have found that the order is search warrant, probable cause, and then reasonable suspicion. So probable cause and RAS are two entirely different things. Probable cause is, let's see here, there has to be a reasonable basis for believing that a crime has been committed, or when there's evidence of a crime is present. Let's see here. Persons arrested without a warrant are required to be brought before a competent authority shortly after the arrest for prompt judicial determination of probable cause. So there's another area that you can very, very easily attack if you are arrested. Probable cause.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Well, that's another issue. You would have to request to be taken in front of a competent authority immediately. And I know a lot of guys who do that. They just keep repeating that over and over and over again. Let's see here. So probable cause, then we have reasonable suspicion. And then you have case law involving reasonable suspicion, right? And I guarantee you there's no case law on registration, because if people knew that registration was the theft prevention, the motor vehicle theft prevention program, they'd be pissed. I don't know what it is. It pissed me off. I don't know what it is about that, but it has a tendency to really piss people off when they find out that registration is 34 USC 12611. Boy, they get mad. I got pissed when I found out, man. I was so mad. I'm like, why am I so mad about this? I don't even understand it. RAS is if you don't have a registration sticker on your truck, they do need that. So it's she doesn't know that, but that is good that she said that. If you had a registration sticker on your truck, she would not need RAS. She believes she would need RAS, but she would not need RAS. So let's get back into this. You're wanted for being a railroad.
And in her mind, apparently the laws of California are above free will. She was like, I think this is beyond free will. I think this is about the laws of California.
Yeah, that's
as if the law supersedes free will.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I said, there's 5 million different ways to attack this in a court. I mean, it's almost so easy. It's actually laughable to handle this. I mean, when you understand RAS and 34 USC 12611 and the basics of a contract and how to sign and how to endorse instruments, and I mean, there's no way you could lose. I mean, it's just impossible. The only way you could lose is by pulling out a gun and start firing and get murdered. That's the only way you can lose. There's no other way you can possibly lose. It's physically impossible, literally. You heard the officer. He kind of liked that. He liked that whole hands up so that you can see my hands kind of a thing, because again, they're just nervous. You're up high. You look like Thor. You know what I mean? So It's just kind of. It's amazing how they always use the word driver. They always use the word motor vehicle. Like they actually use the terminology. It's very, very specific every single time. I've read thousands of reports and thousands of videos and all the stuff and court cases, and it's literally always the same terminology. So it's very, very fascinating that they don't realize that the terminology they use is very specific, wildly specific. And that's why showing them the definition of driver might be very powerful.
Just throwing out threats left and right.
148A1. We can look that up right now. 148A1. So real quick. So if we look at 148A1 real quick. Let me stop sharing here. Oops. So we have 148A1 on the screen. Every person who willfully resists, delays, or obstructs any peace officer, public officer, peace officer, or an emergency medical technician, as described in Division 2.5, commencing with Section 1797 of the Health and Safety Code, in the discharge or attempt to discharge any duty of his or her office or employment, when no other punishment is prescribed, shall be punished by $1,000 or by imprisonment in a county jail not to exceed 1 year, or both. Now the thing I see on this right away is discharge or attempt to discharge any duty. So the word discharge means that they're locked into something they can't get out of, or locked into something that they feel that has to be performed in a certain way, and then duty. So the question is what the question is they were bound by some duty they felt like they had to discharge, right? So the basis of the idea that there was this duty, the duty was the fact that they have to enforce the California Vehicle Code. But again, the problem is that the California Vehicle Code is only applicable for somebody who is a resident of the state of California. So they are under the false assumption that they have a duty of which they have to discharge. They don't have a duty.
Right.
These are all assumptions. It's an assumption that you're a resident of California. It's an assumption that the driver's license identifies you. It's an assumption that they have a duty. It's an assumption that you are contracted into the California Vehicle Code. It is an assumption that the truck is or is not registered, or should not be registered. It is an assumption that registration is God knows what, when it's actually 34 U.S.C. 12611, the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. It's just assumptions. Everything is an assumption. Everyone is just assuming all these things. And when you start challenging all of those assumptions, they don't stand a fucking chance. No one does. Everything is based on assumptions. There's like 14 assumptions there. You start challenging all 14 assumptions? There's no way. There's no way anyone's ever doing anything to anybody if they start questioning all these assumptions. So many fucking assumptions. Assuming my name, assuming that I am that name, assuming that I am the sameness with that name, assuming that name is this, assuming that name is another person or it's the same person, assuming that the vehicle is a motor vehicle, assuming that it is or is not commercially operated, assuming that there is registration, assuming that what registration even is, assuming what a driver is, assuming what the word person is inside of the definition of the word driver, assuming the definition of the word operate, which is located inside of the word driver, assuming the definition of the term commercial motor vehicle, which is located in Title 49 with a special definition, assuming I'm a railroad.
Yeah, even though my affidavit dispels a lot of those assumptions, they just continue to disregard.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So technically the affidavit is correct. The problem is the situation is not going to be addressed using that, sadly. In a court of law it will be, but on the side of the road it will not be. You see, it's two totally different chess games, you see. So a question that could be asked in a situation like that is, what duty are you attempting to discharge? Because I'm not totally sure they would even be able to answer that question. Maybe they would, but for sure you get them thinking, because that's the terminology of 48A1, right?
Yeah. I
think it's so funny that they started. I've been hearing this term a lot recently. Legal signature.
Mm-hmm.
That's hilarious. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what. I just started hearing that more and more recently because obviously, everyone's signing or endorsing with restrictive endorsements and all this stuff now. So it's just fucking hilarious. Legal signature. I mean, oh my God. That's the most hilarious. That's like more hilarious to me than sovereign citizen. It's hilarious. Legal signature. Oh my God.
We're about to get into that.
Yeah. So fucking funny. That was good. I like that. That was good. So, that's as per what we saw earlier, brought in front of a magistrate, right? So that would be to determine probable cause and reasonable articulable suspicion, right? Mm-hmm. Just thinking about it, you could, rather than it be called an affidavit of status, you could just call it an affidavit of identification, and it can be very, very short. Mm-hmm. It can be, I hereby swear under penalty of perjury that I am blah, 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 and you can write a little bit about yourself, and then you would just put, I am not, identifiable or have any sameness associated with the ens legis of my name spelled in all capital letters that is an incorporated entity. It doesn't need to be a long, huge thing. And
What
you
would be
could
the
even
best
put
thing
a
to
photo.
do? Just give them my passport card?
Well, yeah, of course, but I'm just saying you could also put a photo of you on that affidavit as well, and that would be the closest thing you're going to get to something that may be something they would accept. But yeah, passport card is definitely, in my opinion, the best thing that you can possibly give them. Passports are issued only to U.S. nationals, as per 22 CFR 51.3, 22 CFR 51.2, sorry. 22 CFR 51.2. Passports may be issued only to U.S. national. And then when you describe it as a non-citizen national of the United States, you are specifying that you are not subsection A, which is a United States citizen, but you are subsection B, which is a person who 20, was it 8 USC 1101. Well, you can also see it at 22 USC 212. That's the one we pulled up earlier. No passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons than those owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. So you are not a resident of the United States, but you do have allegiance to the United States because they're trying to establish residency. You see?
Yes.
That's the secret. You're a non-resident alien to everything they will bring up or ask you. But you do have allegiance to the United States. And that allows you to have access to have a U.S. passport and a U.S. passport card. One thing I wanted to cover here real quick, I've been doing a little clicking around here in the background, is if you look on your certificate of title, you will see that your name in all capital letters is listed under what's called a registered owner, and that's the terminology the police will use. Are you the registered owner of this vehicle? Again, the terminology, they don't realize it. It's very, very specific. So if you look up definition of registered owner, we're going to look up the legal definition. Even in the newest version of Black's Law, it's very clear. The definition of registered owner. What the heck?
Learn more.
Oh my God, what is this? Okay. They are blocking me
Advanced.
from going to Black's Law online. That is wild. I've never seen that before. Let's see if I can try it again. Oh, wow. Okay.
Click advanced.
Oh, advanced. There we go. Oh, my
Yeah.
Lord. What is
Okay.
happening here? Oh, my God. Well, that could be a conspiracy. That's pretty wild. That is gone. That is brand new. Whoa. Okay. This is the one. This is the one here, I believe. This is very close to the one from Black's Law. The owner whose name is recorded in a security issuer's registers as the securities owner and is entitled to receive dividend or interest and principal payouts. So registered owner means that you have a security interest in the asset. So if they ask you, are you the registered owner, it's a difficult question because the answer might be yes, but you don't want to be. That's not what you want to be. That's the problem. So there's many issues here. That's why I sent in my certificate of title and I told the state to destroy everything. And I'm actually going to, when I litigate against the DMV, I'm going to verify through discovery that all of those securities have been destroyed. And there was a new one that they made recently for the motorcycle that I had made. That one, I'm actually going to go after them for a violation of a registered trademark because they can't put that all caps name on any security document. And by listing my all caps name as registered owner, they're using that all caps name to create a security illegally because I never gave them any ability to do that, and my trademark is a couple of years old. So they did that while that name was trademarked. So that's going to be actually a federal trademark case. That I'm actually in the middle of writing right now. But anyways.
Nice.
So getting rid of that certificate of title, you don't want to be registered owner. So when they ask you, are you a registered owner? They don't realize they're asking you this. What they're asking you is, do you have are you listed as the person who has a security interest in this vehicle? So, all this vehicle stuff is very complicated. I don't even talk about it that much because financials is simpler. State, nationality is way simpler. For whatever reason, cars and transportation is just so ridiculous in terms of how complex it is. Anyways, let's get back to this. Yeah, so real quick. So for example, like I am not a citizen. I'm a national of 3 different nations. You have Slajamstan, you have the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, and then you have the United States, right? So the definition of national comes from 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A21. 8 U.S.C. 1101. I'm going to share the screen here and I'll show it to you. Because there's a lot of people use these terms. I even used to use all these terms and everything, and it's like I just didn't really totally understand exactly what I was saying. But it's actually very simple. The term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state, right? If you look at 8 U.S.C. 1408, it's very, very clear that nationality and citizenship are 2 entirely separate things. Unless provided in section blah, 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 the following shall be nationals but not citizens of the United States at birth. And then you have 8 U.S.C. 1401. This one goes into nationals and citizens at birth. And it's just the opposite. They write it in one way and then they write it the opposite way, right? So these are 2 completely different things. And that's why on the I-9 form, the employment eligibility verification form, that's why on this form, the way that they write it is very, very specific. A non-citizen national of the United States. Because remember, a U.S. national is either a United States citizen or a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. So they couldn't just say U.S. national, because a U.S. national could be 2 different things. They're very, very specific. Subsection B of 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A22 says a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. The term that they have developed to very explicitly describe that subsection B is a non-citizen national of the United States. So that's the term I use. That's what they use, so I'll use the same term. I don't have any problem with that. You know what I mean? So they say this, they say that. You say no. I've actually pledged allegiance to the United States, so I am actually a national of the United States. But I'm subsection B, which is a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, I owe permanent allegiance to the United States, and that's the actual, exact, specific, definitional way that you would answer that question. So you have body cam footage of you saying that. It couldn't get any more fucking crystal clear. The fact that the cop doesn't understand at that point, that's his problem. Okay? Yeah, so case law is an opinion or interpretation of something that occurred in a court case. It is used for directional purposes. The definitions of the words, in my opinion, which are typically only talked about by seasoned professionals like trial attorneys, that's where the real power is. Because you're using these terms, and there's these definitions of these terms, and there's these assumptions of these terms and words, and you aren't operating off of an opinion or interpretation. You are operating off of the actual source material. So you would say, in a court of law, it'd be like, well, who cares about case law? We got the definition right here. What do we need the opinion or interpretation of another court for? We have the definition here. Let's talk about the definition. It's a very, very powerful point of view that most attorneys, because they're so fucking lazy, they never use it. Because the thing is that it requires you to actually think. They don't want to have to do that. They'd rather just pull up stupid case law and pray that it brings the ball down the field. But you start whipping out definitions and asking questions, and you'll obliterate case law. It's very easy. Now, you can also find case law about the definitions of words. That's also very interesting.
Interesting.
Case law
yeah.
about a law or a situation is one thing. Case law about a definition, like, for example, the entire slaughterhouse cases, where the entire federal citizenship category, the U.S. citizen category, was created, is case law. That's actually case law of definitions. So it's a fascinating thing. Are you looking at case law that's definitional based, or are you looking at case law that's not? Because if it's not going to be, they can use it all they want. It's not going to be that great. Now, this was interesting when I heard this, because this actually is a very, very weird situation where I don't know if they totally realize what they're doing and what they're asking, but this actually could get a little weird, where they could somehow say that because you're taping the interaction, and because the interaction, you making money off the interaction, that the interaction becomes a commercial interaction. I don't know if anyone would ever actually do that, but that's just kind of what I was thinking about when I saw this part. I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, honestly. There's probably a good way you could spin that and say this is actually now a commercial transaction. That would be a very fascinating way to kind of spin this situation. You wouldn't do that with the officers. They wouldn't understand that. But if you did that in a court of law, you could really change the functionalities of this particular activity very rapidly. You would kind of reprogram all of the functionalities of this by transforming the entire interaction into a commercial interaction. I'm just some musings that I had while I was watching this. Some side notes.
And I didn't make any money from this, so
that's cool. But I'm just saying you could, and then now it's a commercial transaction, which is fascinating. I don't really know what that would do, but I know for a fact it would change a lot about everything about this interaction drastically. I mean, it already is a commercial transaction because they're having you sign a performance bond. But anyways, it's just an interesting musing that I had when I was watching this. I saw some things online on this one. I scrolled down through the comments, and I saw like, oh, you talked way too much and blah 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 blah. You know, I don't really know about that. We'll go through some of the comments at the end. We'll go through some of the.
Okay.
I don't necessarily. I mean, yeah, anything you say can and will be used against you, but I don't know. I'm not. You know, it's not always the best thing. Sometimes it is. It just depends on what you're trying to do and where you're at, and it's just not. You know. Anyways, let's just keep going with this. Yeah, see, I don't know if he knows this. I have no idea what he knows or doesn't know, but he's starting to. This is starting to. These questions that he's asking you is this interaction a commercial interaction, and am I now involved in a commercial interaction, which is a. It is a commercial interaction anyways, because they're going to give you tickets. But I'm just saying, like, it's just a more interesting commercial layer to the situation that I'm not sure if he knows that. That's why he's asking these questions. I'm not sure, but there's definitely an element. It's the same thing I was thinking when I was watching this. That you will see it's a promise to perform. It's a promise to perform. It's a performance bond. That's what that ticket is. And that's why it's a commercial transaction, just by the way. Legal. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Legal. I don't know who the fuck made that up. That's the goofiest shit. That's like the police's like goofy version of like the term sovereign citizen. Legal signature. Oh my God, that's straight up fucking comedy.
They totally knew that I was going to put some type of, phrase as a restrictive endorsement on there.
Yeah, you showed the guy that he asked you what you had written on that Post-it note, and you had showed him, right? So he already knew, and he told her, and then that was the whole. So this is the definition of citation. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So the second definition is an order from a court or the police commanding one's appearance at a certain time and place. To avoid having to make the appearance, one may attempt to show cause for lack of compliance with the order, or sometimes enter a plea and accept judgment by mail. So when you pay for the ticket, you are accepting judgment by mail. And another definition of citation is a source that supports a statement or is otherwise related to it. So it's essentially like a declaration or affidavit would be another term for citation, right? In
And
legal
then
documents, this...
When it says one may attempt to show cause for lack of compliance with the order, could I send in something to the court, for example, attempting to remedy the situation with the man or woman victim?
Yeah, of course, because the citation is essentially a complaint, and you can answer the complaint. That's the actual terminology. And within the answer, you would write the answers, and then below the answer is where you would write a counterclaim. So answer and counterclaim go on the same document, and you submit the counterclaim with the answer. The problem is that I don't know if these minor traffic courts are even a part of the major court system. So I don't even know if you try to do that and they said you can't do that, that's just their way of saying, this isn't a real court. Now, at that point, you would have to litigate in a real court, and you would be the plaintiff, and you would file a lawsuit on behalf of the lower court, the minor court or whatever, fake court, I guess. I don't know what you call it, right? But either way, you can always go on the offensive, and that's always what I recommend. I recommend that you want to immediately and with as much force and power as possible, you want to go on the offensive. Not in a vengeful kind of way, but in like a very, very aggressive judgment equity kind of way. Like there has been a misbalance, and the balance of that needs to be adjusted rapidly, very, very rapidly. That's essentially how I do what I do, right? If I was pulled over, I wouldn't do anything like that unless I really, really felt that I had been very, very mishandled. And then if that was the case, then I would start to proceed with those kinds of proceedings, and then we would roll into discovery, and then I would depose the police officer, and then I would make a fool of them, and then I would take the videos and I would publish the videos to the best of my ability and destroy the entire reputation of the officer, and then I would have the officer's badge stripped, and then I would have the officer, possibly facing jail time, and then I would have damages, monetary damages, and it would be, if I really, really, really wanted to go that far, if I had really felt that that was what was needed in order for there to be equity, for example, if I felt that the officer was doing this to other people, and I needed to stop that from occurring to other people, to me, having all of the following things that I just mentioned occur would be proper justice for that situation. You think that the judge is the judge. Well, in a lot of situations, when you really understand this stuff and you really have a level head, you're the judge. You're the judge, the jury, and the executioner. So when you have that kind of power and you realize you have that kind of power, it does create tremendous amount of humbleness. And then when you're very humble, you never have the issues to begin with. When you're really humble, you just never get bothered. No one ever bothers you anymore, ever again. It's like a spiritual thing. It's like a circle of life. You go through all this, and then you come around the other, and then that's it. No one ever bothers you anymore. You don't even know why. That's my experience.
And that is how I feel why I want to litigate, to stop this from happening, not only to myself, but to other people. I think.
And I feel like that is, in my opinion, in North America, where we live in the United States of America, we don't have a rite of passage as a man. For a woman, her period is a rite of passage from being a girl into being a woman. A man doesn't really have that. We hit puberty and we kind of have some things, but it's just not like, in the Middle East and stuff like that. They have like Mecca, and they have like a whole journey, and like in a lot of Indian tribes, there's a whole thing that they do where they go out in the forest for 7 days, and they have to do this and that, and then they come back, and then now they've officially graduated, and now they are a man.
Yep.
We don't really have that. For me, in litigation, I have found the rite of passage being a man. I feel like litigation and what we're talking about right now is the rite of passage for us. But that's just my own opinion,
How so? I'm curious about that.
This is the ultimate masculine. This is battle. This is war. And it's like the art of war. Know thy enemy, and appear weak when you are strong, and appear strong when you are weak, and all warfare is based on deception, and build your enemy a golden bridge of which they can retreat across. And all of the Sun Tzu items. This is warfare, but warfare is not clanging swords and clanging axes. Sun Tzu says all warfare is based on deception. So it's kind of a weird conversation to have, because if you were to break that down, now you have, deception is the masculine rite of passage, which is a kind of a weird way of saying it, but it's defeating the enemy not through hand-to-hand combat, but defeating the enemy through deceptive means and through getting them to think something that isn't true and getting them to fight shadows, and that's what they do. That's what the whole system does to us.
Yeah.
Everything
like
is designed to deceive us, right? So all warfare is based off of deception. So it's kind of like, it's a weird conversation to have. I don't really know how I would describe all of it, because I don't really deceive people either, because I feel like the level above warfare is complete understanding, complete affinity, complete openness, complete love, which by definition would not be warfare, which by definition would not be deception.
Yes.
So but when you're stuck in warfare and you're stuck in it and you don't know how to get out of it, now you're in warfare, and what does Sun Tzu say? He says all warfare is based off of deception. So if I'm not involved in war in any area of my life, so I don't use deception necessarily. But if I did, or if I did feel like I was in a war, like with some bar card defense attorneys, I may use deception, maybe possibly within the confines of the law. You see, they use it all the time. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in the world that bar cards love more than deception. Everything they do is deception. I mean, they are walking beasts of deception. So sometimes it's good to fight fire with fire, and sometimes it's good to just put everything on the table and just not do that. It just depends, If you want to be at war, then you follow the rules of war, but you can always end war by deciding to end the war, and then at that point deception would no longer be required, you see. But you have the power to decide when that starts and ends, you see.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of this that we're talking about right now, all the facets of it and all the ideas of it, and the fact that angels are always depicted with swords, and I feel like that's because that's the rite of passage. This is the masculine, right? It's sort of like, I feel like the rite of passage for a man is one of two things. It could be entrepreneurial, stuff, maybe possibly, or it could be like hand-to-hand combat, boxing, or MMA fighting, or something like that. And then there's also, I feel like, litigation is like the third choice. But I feel like if I feel like entrepreneurial, that's almost kind of like secondary. I feel like the true essence of like a masculine rite of passage would be either like hand-to-hand combat or litigation.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some combination of mental and physical challenge to overcome.
Yeah. Well, it's also emotional. I mean, hand-to-hand combat is also emotional and mental as well.
Hugely.
Looking at even like Bruce Lee, I mean, he would be so connected with his opponent that he would read his opponent before the opponent even had time to execute that of which they were about to do, an upper kick to the head. He was so connected to that opponent, and he had so much affinity with that opponent. And what does Sun Tzu say? He says, know thy enemy. Bruce Lee knew thy enemy to such a unseen, unheard of level that by the time the opponent decided in their mind that they were going to kick the head, he would immediately go for the leg that was going to be by itself, and he would kick the side of the knee or calf of the leg while the kick to head was being performed. That's the ultimate definition of know thy enemy.
One step ahead.
He's literally like, there's not even, I mean, you might as well walk away. There's nothing you can even do. I mean, there's no chance that you'll ever even land a punch on this guy. Like, why am I even here? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate warfare. Know thy enemy. If you knew everything these cops were thinking, and you knew everything they were doing, and you knew the motor vehicle theft prevention program top to bottom, and you know that they're operating off of these presumptions, and you know all these things, and you know all these definitions, and you know everything's based off of an assumption, they don't stand a chance.
And that's what you're doing in litigation. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get back into this. Now, real quick on this, there's a lot of people who are not comfortable with getting rid of the driver's license. I went and changed the signature on my license for like a year and a half, and they issued me without prejudice, by the whole thing, beneficiary, the whole thing. So it's a weird conversation to have. It's all kind of bullshit because on a passport card or a passport book. Well, a passport book would be a good example because you do have to sign the passport book, but you sign it by hand. So it would be an ink signature, right? And the passport book is cool too because you can just write whatever you want. There's a lot of space there. So even if you wanted to add things later, you could do that. The driver's license, they print however it is that you sign onto the card itself, usually on the lower left-hand corner in California, state of California, whereas a passport card does not have any listing of any signature anywhere. Interesting idea. So you're going to tell me that my legal signature is based off of something else, but you don't have anything of which to relate that to because the passport card does not have any verification or signature on it of it by any means. So that's kind of an interesting conversation as well, right? So if you write without recourse on a performance bond, it basically indemnifies you from all future performance. So without recourse is all you need to write on any traffic violation, and that just means that I'm not ever going to perform on this, and there's nothing you can do about it. You wouldn't say that. That's na you can't get me. But if you write without recourse on there and they accept it, it's all over, by the way.
I think that's what I put with UCC 1-308.
No, you put without prejudice, which means all rights reserved.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is great. Without prejudice, you can put both. You can put without recourse and without prejudice. If you put both of those on everything, I mean, you're pretty much just covering all bases, right? Because I'm an attorney and I am litigating, like for me, it'd be very easy to handle a situation like this. I would just say, I'm an attorney. This is my legal signature. End of story, right? Legal signature is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't even know what I would do in a situation. So I'd probably just start laughing hysterically. I don't know what I would do because it's just so ridiculous. It's just so outrageous. You can do a FOIA request to get copies of all of the body cam footage. So I don't know. I'd probably say something like, you would like me to endorse this performance bond. I am attempting to endorse this performance bond, because you're going to pull the body cam footage. So it's like, now you're going to go to a court of law and it's going to say, look, I'm attempting to perform, I'm trying to perform, I want to perform, and then they arrested you. So it'd be very, very easy to address that in a court of law. You were obviously trying to perform, and you were saying that you were trying to perform, and you were prevented from performance. In fact, you could do something really crazy and goofy, like, for example, when you counterclaim, you can counterclaim for a violation of 15 U.S.C. 1. I mean, this would be hysterical, but 15 U.S.C. 1 is if anyone tries to prevent or restrain commercial activity from taking place. And the penalty is up to $100 million if a corporation, and up to $1 million or imprisonment up to 10 years. You could say that the police department is on the hook for up to $100 million, and you could say that the police officer in question is on the hook up to 10 years in prison and $1 million for restricting trade or commerce by not allowing you to manufacture a performance bond. I would, if someone did that, oh my God, I would fucking die laughing. Just absolutely keel over and need to get buried. That's like trolling on a whole nother level. I'd probably do that myself, to be honest with you.
Because that's what they did when they refused
They're preventing
the signatures.
you from
Yeah.
You're trying to perform in commerce, and they are actively restricting commercial performance. Yes. Because what people don't realize is that the sheriff's office is on the actual criminal side. That's why you always see sheriff is involved with all the criminal stuff. On the police side, they're actually on the commercial side. So the whole purpose of the police is to regulate commercial flow and increase commercial flow. If you get down to the real nitty gritty of how it really works, functionally. So if you hit them with 15 U.S.C. 1, you would literally say The whole purpose of the police is to increase and clarify commercial flow, and they are going against their own duty. So they're saying they have a duty, and you are stopping them from discharging the duty. Well, no, their duty is to perform and bring a commercial bond into existence, and they are actively preventing that commercial bond from being. So they are actually failing to discharge their duties. So you could go on a whole. I mean, the police officer would just be sitting there, just absolutely fucking flabbergasted. It would be hilarious. So you could just put, like, if they really wanted my name, I'd put without recourse, and then below that by colon, and then I would sign my name. It's okay. You just without recourse would have to be there. You know what I mean? Above the name or below it or wherever, right?
Legal signature.
Yeah. So they're trying to relate some other source material. Again, it's like the definition of identify, right? That's sameness, right? So they're saying you signed here a certain way over here on the affidavit. You signed over here in a certain way on the driver's license. So the solution to that, I suppose, even though it's just so goofy to me, would be to just make sure that on your driver's license as well as on your affidavit, it includes the terminology without prejudice as well as the terminology without recourse. Just put them both on there. Now they're going to say, legal as to what? What are you referencing to? Oh, well, shit, it says the same thing here and it says the same thing here. Well, I guess it is your legal. I mean, they don't know what they're talking about. You can confuse them so easily because they don't have a clue. So if you put the terminology on the affidavit and you put that terminology on the driver's license, now what are they going to do? You see? Again, so what happens is that the without recourse is essentially the most terrifying thing on the planet to a police officer. They don't understand it, but they know that there is something that people can write that makes everything that I do have no power. Like, it's basically like defanging me, taking away all my weapons, all my power. All of my power is being taken away by people who are writing some goofy shit on these fucking tickets. Now, they think that if that were to become more applicable or that were to become more usable, then the gates of hell open and all the minions come through and the city is going to be leveled in brimfire, brimstone and fire and haze, and there'll be dead bodies and children dead and bloodbath everywhere, right? So again, it's sort of like the same way of saying, na, you can't get me, and they know there's something there. They don't know what it is or how it works, but they know there's something there, and people are starting to do it more and more, and it terrifies the living fuck out of them. Okay, that's all they know. Yeah, that's why I use a private motor carrier DOT plate. By the way, is just because you just put something there, and then you don't get fucked with. It's not a commercial thing; it's a private thing. It says in the definition of private motor carrier, often used for commercial purposes, but within the confines of a commercial activity using its own goods or whatever. But it does not say always. So we have another assumption there. There's a lot of ways to use and facilitate. We can get into that after the video, but I just want to. There's some guys who are like, fuck the motor carrier DOT number. Like, we don't need any of that shit. Like, blah blah. That is true. I don't deny that. The problem is you will be accosted. That's the problem. So it's all optional. We live in a voluntary world. We live in a voluntary system. Whatever you want to do is up to you. I'm not even saying what the quote best thing to do is, end quote. I don't want to get pulled over every 5 fucking seconds, so I have a private motor carrier DOT plate on my car. Period. End of story.
So there we have it.
There we go. So it might sound like I butchered your video. It might sound like every single little inch, every millimeter of your video. Whoops, hold on. But I'm not. I wouldn't bring you on the show, and I wouldn't. I actually really enjoyed the interaction. I wanted to get into some of the comments. Fuck, hold on one second.
Yeah, there's a bunch of comments on that one for both sides.
Let's do that real quick, and then we can get into. Because, like I said, the peanut gallery is gonna come out in full force on this one. We're gonna have probably 480 trillion comments on this fucking video, and it's going to irritate the fuck out of me, by the way. But that's okay, because I'm technically, I haven't necessarily done it, so it's also kind of like,
It's that third one.
I recognize that. I recognize that myself too. So going down here, here's some of my comments, right? What had you sign, blah, blah, blah. So this is a very negative comment. It is true. But it's like from a very, very like not understanding the other person's perspective. Yeah, they'll lose their assumed power, but they feel like their assumed power is what brings stability to the society. They aren't pieces of shit. Their intent is not to destroy. Their intent is to hold the demons at bay. You see, that's the issue. The issue is they think that the default of a human being is a robbing, murdering, bloodthirsty, psychopathic. Not fully, but like anyone left to their own devices will do something illegal, and they will harm or degrade the society, or they will make a society that is people will the natural proclivity of a human being is to violate common law. Is almost like the easiest way to say that is the ultimate spinal cord stable idea that they operate off of. That idea has to be there in order for someone to be a police officer. Once that idea is shaken, then you're shaking the actual entire spinal cord that even has them there wearing the badge and the uniform. If you shake that basic piece of information, you shake their entire career. That's the way you shake it. Right? And you can shake it because that is a false piece of information. It is a false piece of information. If that was true, you wouldn't even be able to walk down the fucking road without getting robbed or killed or raped or God knows what. Right? This one's just ridiculous. Only in America can you not hurt anyone, pay taxes, and still have the police threats around so you can get away with it. Again, they're just operating off of the fact that they have to do what they have to do in order for there to be stability in the society. Okay.
Yeah, here's the deal. There's another account that did a breakdown of my video.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Steal my private plates. They broke out the window. Pried my doors with crowbars. Okay. I mean, I guarantee you he was either extremely unlucky or hostile and
combative,
it just very combative.
Emotional.
I guarantee it. Or just extremely unlucky, but I feel like that would be a rare situation. Like I said, I've dealt with hundreds, if not thousands, of these, and I can always trace it down every fucking time to, nah, you can't get me, you fucking pig, piece of shit, blah blah, the whole thing, the whole thing, So let's see. Yeah, this is just a lot of cop hating type of stuff here, which I understand. People, the basic misconception between cops and non-cops is that cops have to operate under the guise or the assumption that people will do bad things if left to their own devices. And the basic argument, the justiciable controversy, is that the police believe that, and the people who hate the police don't believe that. The problem is that that's factually untrue. So from an objective point of view, the police would be incorrect on that particular assumption. That's it. That's the whole conversation. An end of story. That's the whole thing wrapped up in a nutshell. Okay? And to assist a police officer to realize that that is not true is to actually assist the police officer into removing a incorrect assumption that actually makes his world very dangerous. It's a very dangerous assumption. The amount that you can enjoy life if you are operating your life under that assumption is much lower than somebody who is not operating under that assumption. So by assisting an officer to do away with that assumption is to essentially almost to deliver therapy.
Yes.
It's cathartic. You are actually literally the therapist of the police officer.
Because with that current assumption, that means their whole entire existence is operating out of a place of fear.
Yeah.
And so all their thoughts are,
that's why they're looking at everything and they can't see your hands, and they have a very, 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 very high fear factor in their life, And anything you do that will increase the level of fear that they are experiencing, that level of fear and tension rises very, very rapidly. And that's why, because they are operating off of that assumption. And you are verifying that assumption. And once you've verified that assumption, then it's very hard to get out of it because they already had the assumption to begin with. So let's see here. In California, passengers are not required to obey an officer's command unless the officer has RAS against the passenger or if the passenger is impeding. This is interesting. I don't know. Again, if you have a registration sticker on your car, they wouldn't need RAS. Then you have two different types of jurisdiction. You have personal jurisdiction and you have subject matter jurisdiction, right? So it's an interesting conversation, and it's a conversation that would be had in court. You have two persons, so you have two different areas of personal jurisdiction, and then you have subject matter jurisdiction, which is the car in question. So if they have subject matter jurisdiction over the car, but they don't have personal jurisdiction over the individuals, then that's a weird situation, and that's all would have to get sorted out in court, right? The problem is that when you have a certificate of title and you are a registered owner, or your all caps ends lead just as a registered owner, they do have subject matter jurisdiction. That's the issue. So the way it works in law is if you have a certificate of title, the police are basically policing their own vehicle. They're basically a private security force, and the asset in question is owned by the state, and they are a private security force for the corporation called State of California, and they are giving you an order to step out of their vehicle, or a vehicle of which they have power of attorney to deal with, because that asset is owned by the state because you gave your car to the state when you got a certificate of title, you see. So if you get rid of the certificate of title, you get rid of the driver's license, you get rid of the license plate, and you get rid of the registration sticker, now you have a situation where they don't have personal jurisdiction or subject matter jurisdiction. The problem is they don't know that. That's the issue. So it's a very complicated, it's ridiculously complicated, honestly. But you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, so what's the first step in that is getting the private DOT carrier number?
Yeah, you can literally just take your certificate of title that you got for your car or your bike and just write all over it, this is to be destroyed, all security interest is to be released, and put a little attached little letter or affidavit on the front of it, and it just says, look, this all caps name is no longer the registered owner or has any security interest in the vehicle. This vehicle is being fully privatized. It's going to be placed in a private trust, and there will be absolutely no security interest on this asset by the state. Please release all security interest on this vehicle. This vehicle will no longer be registered, and this name will no longer be registered owner, and this security is no longer this security needs to be destroyed permanently. I mailed all that into the state. I never heard back from them, ever. I never got a phone call, a letter, nothing. So I just assumed it got done. And then with my bike, I got the MCO, MSO straight from the dealership when I bought it. And I never sent it into the state. And they still issued a certificate of title. So when I sue them, it's going to be securities fraud because they didn't have the MCO or MSO. Certificate means like copy of or evidence that a copy exists. There has to be the MSO or MCO in order to make a certificate of title. Certificate of title is the abstract of the MSO or the MSO or the MCO. So if they never got an MCO or an MSO, they illegally manufactured a security, and then my name in all capital letters has a registered trademark. So they used my name illegally, and they violated my trademark, in order to illegally manufacture a false security. You're looking at like 30 years in prison. So I'm writing that up now. I'm writing up that whole lawsuit now.
What's the process of getting the certificate of title?
Well, you already have one. There's the pink slip. That's the certificate of title is the pink slip.
Okay. I'm going to have to look for that.
So if you don't have the pink slip, you can request for them to send you a new one, or you can literally just send in an affidavit with instructions to just destroy it. You don't need another copy. Just destroy it. Get rid of it. You have 30 days. Don't be mean. You just 30 days. I'm giving you guys some time. It might take you a little bit of time. But releasing all security interests, no longer the registered owner, not in contract with the state anymore. Do not find anything happening with the state to be adequate consideration any longer. There has to be what's called consideration in order for there to be a contract. So when you clearly communicate that there is not adequate consideration and you do not find their services to be valuable, that's a very powerful way of saying that all the glue that held together this contract is now gone. There is absolutely no glue any longer. Very powerful. Consideration is, in my opinion, probably one of the most powerful things you can talk about. Things are only consideration if you consider them to be consideration, or if there's an assumption that you consider them to be consideration and you have never rebutted that assumption. That is like by far one of the most powerful ways to just absolutely obliterate any contract off the face of the earth. It's like kryptonite. No contract stands a chance when you start getting into consideration and being very clear about what you consider consideration and what you don't consider consideration and what is and isn't consideration. That's like no court will ever fight you on that. That's like instantaneous victory. Because now, once you've described and explained in explicit detail that this situation and this commercial activity is no longer adequate consideration for you, and they continue to force you into that, that would be involuntary servitude, enticement into slavery, forced labor, all 25 years in prison for all the above. 25, 25, 25, 25. Yeah, it's like 100 years in prison, like immediately, like right out the gate. Very easy. Involuntary servitude is completely illegal and does not exist. Everything is voluntary because they assume it is consideration for you and you never rebut that assumption. That is like the ultimate spinal cord of all what people would consider to be involuntary slavery. When you clarify consideration and they continue to force you into the contract, no court will disagree with you. It's a massive felony on the level of rape, murder, arson. It's literally on that level. Massive. But if you don't clearly, calmly, if you send them an affidavit that's 480 pages long, they can't read it, they can't understand it, they can't duplicate the idea that you're saying that there's no longer any consideration. When it's 2 paragraphs, and you say, I really just don't think that this is adequate consideration anymore, and I would consider the following things consideration if you came and cleaned my car, if you fixed my car, if you painted my car, but if you don't want to do these things, that's it. I don't consider any of these other services that I've been offered. I don't consider any of these things consideration. I don't consider the motor vehicle theft prevention program to be consideration. I don't want to be in that program anymore. I didn't even realize I was in that program. That's it. That's clear as daylight. You can't get any clearer than that. You aren't a fucking paper terrorist doing that. One page, not even a page, half a page.
And then sending this in to who?
To the state. Yeah, you can send it to the state. You can send it to the DMV. You can get a copy of that. You can send it to everybody. Let everybody know what you consider consideration and what you don't. Because that is what equals a contractual obligation. And then if you really want to put it on there, you can put on there, anything above and beyond this or forcing me to continue to perform on this will be considered involuntary servitude and will be handled as such in a court of law. The problem is that I don't recommend you ever threaten anything unless you're willing to actually do it. That's just kind of like a personal policy I have. A very close friend of mine has taught me that. Tracy Barron, my business partner, and the guy who kind of got me into all this in a lot of ways, it's one of his kind of main policies he lives by, and I think it's a good policy to have. If you threaten it, you better be willing to do it, no matter what it takes. So I don't like empty threats. I think there's so many empty threats. Bar cards, that's all they do. That's like their whole repertoire is empty threats. I just don't like it. It's very pathetic. It's a very low level of existence, in my opinion. Okay, so
yes. Out of integrity.
Yeah, we have. This is cool. This guy's cool. Kind of chill,
Yeah, most of them are very supportive.
Yeah, claiming Minnesota Rule 220. That's like a different type of. It's not quite a trademark. But it's like a really cheap, fast way of like kind of doing like a DBA kind of a thing. I don't really know the difference between doing one of these and doing a trademark. I did a full-blown registered trademark on mine, which I think is cool. I would recommend that. It's a long process. It's easy. Well, it's like
you file it, and you have to wait like 4 months, and then you do like one little thing, and you have to wait like 4 months, and then you do like one little thing, and then you wait like 4 months, and then you do like one little thing, and then it's done. So it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that hard. It's just a lot of waiting. Of waiting. But you can start using the trademark as soon as you file it, because when you file it, you've shown intent. It's just that, so you can start putting the symbol on things, and you can start using it. Trademark pending. You've probably heard that terminology before. That means it's filed, but it's not. The process is not completed, and that actually has value because you've claimed it. You're in the process of completing that claim fully, but it's just you've already claimed it. You've claimed that trademark.
Right.
Let's see. Looks like that other channel sent you a lot of good people here. Here's the deal. Case law is irrelevant to what's going on here. Case law. Yeah, I mean it's pretty much irrelevant to most things. It's just a interesting. It's a bunch of guys came together, talked about something, and then they made a determination. It's like it's an interesting, helpful, sometimes thing that you can use. But yeah, it's given so much more relevance in the actual court system than what it should have, really, in my opinion. Definitions is really like if they put the amount of effort they put into case law, if they put even 10% of that much effort into definitions, oh my God, we would have a beautiful society. Beautiful.
Much more clarity.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Less deception, more clarity.
I just tyrants, blah blah blah. I don't think they are, but whatever.
Yeah, a lot of them were also hating on the cops, which,
I don't think cops are tyrants, and I don't think that they're. I asked a cop one time. I mean, it's just one, so whatever. But he's like a 30-year veteran in the LAPD, and he was in all sorts of different gang divisions, and he used to do like hardcore like gang negotiations and all sorts of shit. And he said. I asked him, I said, what percentage of the force is just trying to do the best they can and they're trying to add stability and they're trying to be good people and do the right thing? He said about 85%. I said, okay. I said, of the remaining 15%, what percentage of the remaining 15% used to be good and now they're bad based off of all of the craziness and the stress and all the stuff that they have to deal with? He said about half. So 7.5%. So that leaves 7.5% of cops are bad from the beginning, and they've been bad, and they always will be bad, and they're just bad people. Now, that's just one person just kind of like whatever, but, I mean, 30 years of experience. The guy was very candid with me. We talked for a long time. He was very, very candid. So I think even though it's just one person, and that's not really how surveys work, you want to collect a lot of information, and I don't really do, just from my limited knowledge and having a brother in the sheriff's office in Indiana and just kind of, seeing a lot of things and experiencing a lot of things and talking to a lot of cops, I think that that's a fairly accurate statement in general.
I would say a similar thing applies to the Marine Corps because I was in the Marine Corps and I experienced, like, we all joined because, well, the 85% of us joined because we believe that's the right thing to do. Like, we believe that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's, that's kind of the sad part about all this. I think it's all kind of, there's assumptions on both sides of the equation, and it's all these assumptions of intent, assumptions of definitions of words, assumptions of situations, assumptions of security interest on an asset, assumptions of, it's just like, oh my God, there's so many fucking assumptions everywhere. So thousands of, there's like 18 of them. Easily, like right out the gate, there's like fucking 18 of them. It's like, whoa, hold on a second here. And people make fun of me, or they make fun of us for making it, quote, more complicated. Are you kidding me? Jesus. We're asking questions about assumptions. These are all assumptions. It's a motor vehicle. Where in the fuck did you get that from? Motor vehicle. The fuck's a motor vehicle? Oh, well, it's assumption. Okay. Well, I challenge your assumption. Now you have to prove it. If you assume something in a court of law and I don't defend against it or say no, it's now proven in a court of law. That's the way law works. It's worked like that for hundreds of years, thousands of years. It goes way back. I don't really think there's anything wrong with that because I've made an assumption and that was it. You didn't, So every time there's an assumption made, you jump all over it. rip it apart limb from limb. That's what I do. You don't have a lot of people assuming a lot of shit about me anymore. If that's the life you want to live, that's in my opinion how you live it. So let me see some more of these. Yeah, right here. Here's a good one. Restrictively endorse the bill, except for value, and pay it to the order of U.S. Treasury. So I don't know why you would make the instrument payable to the U.S. Treasury, but you could. There's nothing stopping you. I would rather make it payable to me. But that's just me. I'd rather get paid. But whatever. I mean, without recourse, if you don't state a payee, then it's a blank endorsed instrument, and they can do whatever they want with it. But you never have to perform on it. That's what without recourse means. When you say without recourse, and then below that you say pay to the order of, and then you list your name, now you're even further restricting that instrument. And you're saying now not only do I never have to perform, but now you have to pay me all the proceeds of this instrument if you do anything with it.
Mm-hmm. And if you did that,
so if
you would have
if
that
you make it payable. If you make it payable to the U.S. Treasury, then now at that point you could do without recourse pay to the order of U.S. Treasury. And now what you're saying is that I never have to perform on this, and if you ever make any money on this instrument, or if you exchange this instrument or swap it or sell it or do anything with it, all the proceeds of this instrument need to go directly and only to the U.S. Treasury. That's what you're saying. You can state whatever payee you want. There's nothing stopping you from stating any payee you want. I'm just saying that depending on who the payee is depending on where any value of that instrument can go to. I'd rather get paid personally, but it's up to you. If you want to donate it to the U.S. Treasury, go for it. VC is pretty cool. I have read about this. I don't know how applicable it would be. I don't know. I think endorsing is a billion times more powerful than VC. VC is probably more for like a non-financial, non-performance bond instrument. I don't even really know. Like, you can always add it, I guess. I don't know how effective it would be, but I'll tell you right now, endorsements without prejudice and without recourse is going to be infinitely more powerful. But VC is probably like legit as well. I just think that in a real court of law and in a real deal, it's just not going to be as effective as instruments and operating as a negotiable instrument, you know. So let's see here. Shout out, you're on YouTube live channel. It's funny. Legal signature.
Yeah.
What the fuck is she smoking? Yeah, see. I mean, what's funny is that all the terminology they use that whole time is actually all correct. The only terminology they ever used that is completely insane and ridiculous is that legal signature thing. That's literally outrageous. That's so easy to handle in a court of law. Oh my God. All the other definitions and everything else that they were saying is all straight out of the book. Mm-hmm. Driver, motor vehicle, state of California, resident, you know, they always use all the terminology perfectly, typically from everything I see. This legal signature thing is like literally going to be a stand-up comedy act in like 10 years. I'm telling you. You're going to have guys literally going on stage talking about 10 years ago we had cops pulling people over about the legal signature, and the fucking audience is going to be roaring with laughter, bro. like talking about like how grandpa used to fucking, you know, had a megaphone where he had to put a fucking, you know, crank it up with his fucking hand, and it's just like hilarious, you know. Well, you know, back in the day, I'm 38 years old. Back in the day when we had fucking auxiliary switches and channels to play our Sega Genesis and Nintendo, and we had the bunny ears for the fucking, you know, radar to try to get local channel 7, and it would come in all fuzzy and shitty, and we would wrap tinfoil around the fucking, you know. It's like, that's kind of like, that's what legal signature is going to be in like 5 fucking years. It's going to be just the most hilarious joke that ever happened, that is just this like weird and antiquated, you know, hilarious, like annals of like human hilariousness, you know. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's pretty much all I see here. I mean, we can go farther, I guess, but we're going on a couple hours here. I think we're...
Yeah, it was just a bunch of comments from people coming over from Brian. Here's the deal. So shout out to Brian. Thank you for that. Did a great breakdown.
Yeah, man. So that's everything from me. I mean, anything you want to add, or anything you want to say, or anything you want to ask, or anything you want to?
Yeah, no, that was a great breakdown. Gave me a lot of stuff to have prepared for court. So that would be my question: is outside of everything we already talked about, or a summary, what would your advice be going into court at the end of this month?
Everything you're going to see online is all about like how to get cases dismissed. I don't think you should ever try to get the case dismissed. I think you should immediately go on the offensive.
Yeah.
Because when you counterclaim, you're basically, what you're doing is you're sinking your claws into their torso. It's almost like you're like a parasite, and you're like entering their body, and you're like linking onto like all of their vital organs. They can't get rid of you when you do that, when you counterclaim, because now we have a lawsuit inside of a lawsuit. So if they try to dismiss it, it's literally always going to be denied. There's no way. Now, if you write a counterclaim and then they write a motion to strike or a motion to dismiss that counterclaim, now we have to talk about the counterclaim, and they have to like fight to get rid of it. Now they're on the hook, and they have to fight to get rid of the counterclaim. So now we have two claims, right? So let's say like their claim is just these couple things, and you can address all that in your answer, and then in the answer, at the bottom of the answer, you counterclaim. So now it's like, the cool thing is once you handle the original claim, their original complaint, and you address that and you handle it, if the counterclaim is still sitting there, now they have no teeth at all whatsoever, and now you're the one in the driver's seat. And now they're on the defense completely, and now you're on the offense completely. And in my opinion, that's where you want to get to as rapidly as possible every single time you get accosted, every single time you get a ticket, every single time you get sued. Now, there's just things called, I'm not going to get into a whole litigation class. There's some stuff that I'm going to be releasing soon. There's going to be some micro litigation stuff, like micro litigation classes coming out with David Greenberg. It's going to be coming out here pretty soon. It'll be pretty cool. But you have these things called causes of action. Cause of action is like the main thing that's occurring that's like triggering this particular whatever to take place, this lawsuit or whatever. And you can have as many causes of actions as you want. The more you have, in my opinion, the better, as long as they're like legit. You don't want to just put a whole bunch of horseshit on there. It could be frivolous, right? But if you like legit, you want to have like, on a lot of my cases, I have like 12 or 13 causes of action. If any, those causes of action, they're almost like, these people who stand at the pier and they have like 13 different hooks on their fishing pole. And they just kind of sit there and they smoke a cigarette or whatever, and then one of them starts to kind of shake, and they jump up and they grab that pole. That's what you're doing. So if you have 13 causes of action, you only need to get one hook. If you get one hook, you have a case, and now you can motion that case into discovery. When you motion the case into discovery, now it's basically like the court is going to issue, this is how I describe it, the court's going to issue a badge, a gun, and a shovel. And you can write subpoenas. You can subpoena third parties. You can depose people. You can write interrogatories, which is basically questions that they have to answer under penalty of perjury. So a deposition is when you interview someone with an actual video camera, and it's under penalty of perjury. If they say anything at all that's not true and it's later found to be true, then you can motion the court to find them in contempt. That can be massive monetary penalties or jail time. Okay, so that's a deposition. Deposition is in person. You're in front of the person. You can actually depose yourself. So when you write the motion for a deposition, you can say, I want to be the one to run it. So now you're, you don't want that. It can be the most delicious revenge in the world. I haven't done one yet, but I very much, it's the most exciting thing. I can't wait. Me and Joey Kimbrough, my right-hand man, we are so excited to do a deposition. It's if I had to choose between sex and a deposition at this point in my life, I would choose a deposition. Okay, so you can look up depositions on YouTube to see examples of kind of how those roll and how that works. You've seen depositions in documentaries and stuff. You just didn't know you were looking at a deposition. An interrogatory is a written deposition, so written questions and that kind of thing. And then you can write. You can compel them to produce records. You can compel them to produce documents. You can compel them to produce accounts. You can subpoena third parties for information relevant to the case. So once you move into discovery, you basically, the entire power of the entire judicial system is given to you. You You have to write up everything that you want to do using that judicial system, and you have to get it approved item by item. A deposition has to be approved. This order for a subpoena has to be approved. But you have a little window that's now open, and there's someone there, and you can issue requests, and you can get access to all the power of the judicial system. You can put people in prison. You can do all sorts of things. Anything that a court can do, which is almost anything you can think of, you now have access to do all of those things yourself.
So you're saying step one is answer their claim. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do
You
I
can
even
write the
go about doing that?
counterclaim.
'Cause I don't have any, piece of paper with the list of
Well,
charges
the
or
ticket
anything.
is the ticket is basically the complaint, and each line item. So you basically have to answer each line item of the complaint. That's how an answer works. And the way that if you really want like the simple way to answer a complaint, you answer it either affirmed, denied, or I don't have enough information to know. So the answer for a complaint, let's say there's 4 line items. One is speeding, one is no license plate. You can actually answer each of those line items of the complaint as simply denied, 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 denied. And then below that, you would write counterclaim. And then below that, you would write. So if the complaint is 4 line items, the way that works in law is that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when you write the counter complaint, you would start at 5. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the counter complaint is just numerically continuing where the original complaint left off. So when you file that in, you're filing in the answer. And basically, when you say denied, 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 you're saying Fifth Amendment. You're saying they're making these assumptions. They now have to prove it. I'm not going to incriminate myself. And plus, honestly, none of this stuff is even true anyways. When you say denied, you don't need to say anything more than denied because now they have to prove everything. You're putting all the pressure on them to prove everything. And at the same time, now you're coming after them at the same time. Mm-hmm. So now they have tremendous pressure now to perform and prove all of the original allegations, plus they now have to defend the onslaught of you coming after them.
And how am I typing this up? Just on a Google Doc, or I'm sure there's some specific way to
Yeah,
do
you
this.
have to put like the thing at the top and all the bullshit. That's all you can find all that online. That's like simple accoutrement type. And I'll be doing. There's a show I did recently with Brandon Thomas where I broke down a lot of this, and you can actually see it with your own eyes. It's called the Expanding Reality Podcast, and you just type in Expanding Reality, and then the name of the show is Flurry of Motions, which is actually a legal term for when you file a complaint. They're gonna file. Typically, they'll always file a motion to dismiss, no matter what, no matter how ridiculous. Just as like an attempt to like not have to fuck with it. That time period where they just like fuck around and try to like just scream and do whatever horseshit and try to see what sticks on the wall. That's called the flurry of motions time period. They do that as an attempt to try to not have to answer the complaint. So the name of the show is called Flurry of Motions, and that is a really great breakdown where we actually go through the actual documents, and then probably literally any day now, maybe even today or over the next few days, I'm going to have a video with David Greenberg that is going to be released. That's going to be a micro litigation course. It's going to be a series of videos. We're going to do another one here soon. So I'm starting to kind of get into this, but I don't like teaching things that I don't really have nailed down, at least pretty good. I'm very hesitant to, like, I didn't talk about negotiable instruments and finances for like 9 fucking months. I was just quietly studying in the background. I didn't really say much of anything because I knew it was just going to be inflammatory as shit, and I knew everyone was going to get excited, and I knew it was just going to go fucking gangbusters. And I just didn't want information that I just wasn't super sure about to be met with that much emotional enthusiasm, and then people run off, and then all hell breaks loose. I just knew it was just going to be so fucking crazy that I just wanted to really have that nailed down before I got too into it. But litigation's the same thing. I've been studying this for probably 9 months, and I'm just now kind of starting to talk about it more and more and more. So,
do you know anything about the How to Win in Court course? Have you heard anything about that?
Yes. That's
Yeah, I
where
was
a
gonna take
lot
that.
of the information that I've learned comes from. Dr. What is his name? Not Dr. Glover. That's Robert Glover. Dr. Graves. That's the guy who made all that, Dr. Graves. Yeah, I took his course. I haven't logged into it in a little while, but yeah, it's a great course. HowToWinInCourt.com. It's called Juris Dictionary.
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
course. Fantastic course. So yeah,
Okay.
I think I've done most or all of it, but I took my time and went very slow and was like very, very freakishly delicate to try to understand every word, every single thing he was saying, because I'm in the thick of it now. I've got 4 cases going, and we've got several on the way. So it's like the real deal. I'm really in there. I'm in the octagon, man. So it's
Exciting times, especially if you prefer this over sex. Which,
yeah. Well, deposition specifically. Litigation's pretty awesome. I would say it's up there. Litigation, motorcycles, and sex is kind of all in the same category, but deposition specifically is just a deposition is just
powerful.
It's that that if you really want a taste of revenge, it doesn't get any better than a deposition. You could just obliterate someone off the face of the earth. Literally. They don't. Imagine being the laughing stock of the whole fucking world for the rest of your life. That's literally a deposition. Type in police officer deposition. Hell, you can type in any deposition. The whole point of a deposition is to make someone look like they're fucking insane or stupid as hell or completely incompetent or whatever. That's the whole point. That's why you do it.
Well, yeah, that sounds like it'll be fun.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, Flurry of Emotions, David Greenberg stuff's coming out soon. So rather than get into that here, which we're already kind of like pretty far into this, it's just a whole presentation. So I'll just save it for one of those. There's also one I did recently with Dr. Andy Kaufman. It's not like very specific in terms of like pulling everything up, but we talk about litigation specifically, and it's a very popular video that's pretty cool. That might also be pretty helpful as well. But you're trying to figure out like the actual, like, what do you write and how do you structure the actual paper and stuff like that. So that's going to be more of like the Flurry of Motions video or the David Greenberg stuff coming out soon. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, thank you for this. This was helpful. I imagine it's going to be helpful for all the people watching this too in similar situations. So.
Hell yeah, man. So you're at, what is it, at Captain_Taylor_Morgan.
That's it.
On Instagram. And then on YouTube.
Same thing. Yep, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
Any other major platforms they can find you at?
No, that's it. Those are the major ones.
Perfect. Anything else you want to say or add to this or anything? Or are you good to end off here? Or?
Yeah, we could end here. It's been a while. We could talk about a lot of different things. But as for this, I feel complete.
Perfect, man. All right, guys. So I hope you guys get a lot of value out of this. I know I haven't done anything like this before. I hope you guys like it, and let the comments begin, I suppose. See you later.